And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, yeah.
All right, good morning. Attention to roll call, everybody. Got a busy day today. Happy Friday to everybody out there. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, right? We had the shooting that occurred in Times Square just on the heels of the parade. We're going to talk about what happened at the parade. We're also going to talk about a viral video that came out of an NYPD cop getting into a confrontation with someone on the street. A lot of social media influencers out there dragging her, saying she should be fired. We're going to get into all that stuff. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yo, good morning. Morning, guys. Morning, John. Yeah, good morning, Chad. I see you guys entering right now. Morning to any new viewers we have out there. If this is your first time watching us, we always encourage you to jump into the live chat and YouTube and interact, because in a lot of ways, the chat shapes our conversation, Everything you see here is we do on the fly and it's impromptu. So again, a lot of times the questions asked by chat influences the direction of the show. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about this morning, and just when we thought the city had gotten away with a mostly peaceful parade, there was a couple injuries on the parade. There's a video floating around with a guy with a I don't know if he was stabbed or shot, but he has a big mark on his side of his face and extending to his neck. But just when you thought the city had gotten away with a mostly peaceful parade, there's another shooting in Times Square, the second time in a week. So we talked about it on last show, how important it is, how important a role Times Square plays in tourism. And we'll talk about it again here, and about how much public safety should matter in Times Square, especially in these times when the city is in a fiscal crisis.
I think the thing that, first of all, there's been a million shootings in Times Square. There's been way too many. I feel like at least 2 or 3 times a week we hear about a shooting or a stabbing in Times Square, and we talk about it often. Its nickname is the crossroads of the world, right? And I believe that. I do, because it is one of the top tourist attractions in the world. I believe currently this summer, because of the World Cup, it is the #1 tourist attraction in the world. It will, just the amount of people that pass through Times Square every day. It's a dynamic place. It's an iconic place. Eric's not with us today. He's heading out to the Caribbean, lucky Eric, and he's getting some rest right before his surgery, so he'll be out for a few days, but he'll be back soon enough. But he talks about it often. He says that Times Square and Central Park are kind of like the barometers for crime in New York City, and I have to agree with that statement. If you're looking at Times Square and you're seeing shootings and stabbings and robberies occur often, you have to think, if that's happening in the #1 tourist spot in New York, the financial capital of the world, what's occurring on the side streets? What's occurring in the outer boroughs? Where do you think all of the attention goes in New York City? Do you think the attention goes to Brownsville, Brooklyn? Some people may argue that it does, but I'm going to say absolutely not. The funding, the attention, the eyes, the business community, they're focused on Times Square. They're focused on that tourist revenue, and they're focused on all the money that generates out of there. Those advertising billboards, the price per square feet on those commercial storefronts. So again, after a parade, we have 10,000 cops flooding Manhattan, and we see in broad daylight another shooting occurs in Times Square. Here's a video that came out from this comes out from PhotoOg at PhotoOg on X. Make sure you go over and give them a follow. But you see, look, there's a little brawl. Everyone's out on the street, and bam. Can't tell what the male is. I'm gonna assume male black, male Hispanic in a hoodie. Looks like there was a fight out on the street. Comes over, hood up, boom, boom, and then takes off running. Nobody was hit. Suspect was apprehended moments later. So I think the NYPD did a great job. But, you got to look at why it draws so much attention other than just the tourist revenue. you got to think about this. Other than criminals and police officers, law-abiding, gun-owning people with concealed carry permits in New York City cannot carry in Times Square. It is a gun-free zone. But yet, every week, we get proven exactly that it's actually not a gun-free zone.
Yeah. And so what we're talking about, guys, is that Times Square, since 2019, has been designated one of the sensitive areas where guns are not permitted, regardless of whether you're carrying a legal firearm or a legal firearm. It's just not permitted there. I'll pull up some of the information about it shortly. But the city also put up gun-free zone signs in the area, as though the perps are actually going to read it, right? Well, they haven't since then, since 2019, and there's been a couple of shootings there since, and a couple, victims shot, and a couple times when the firearms were discharged when no one was hit. But the city, in its brilliance, thought that the perps are going to read the signs, and they're going to decide not to carry it there, and that has been proven wrong. And I would think that there would be so much of a police presence in that area, that nobody would want to actually try that, to even carry an illegal firearm there or get into a gang-related shooting. But apparently that's not the case. And I actually think that a lot of the problems we talk about in the NYPD all come down to this, the fact that there's not enough cops. And you can see yesterday, certainly at the parade, we'll get to it, but you can certainly see yesterday at the parade, there was not enough cops, because they actually put out some recruits there too. And the city, only has done that during times of extreme emergency. Before, we're talking like 9/11, we're talking the blackout. I forgot what year that was exactly. Maybe around 2008, 2010. But they had recruits out there now yesterday. So I think again, the fact that shootings have happened so much in Times Square is because of all those problems. There's not enough cops, but there's not enough veteran leadership in precincts, veterans to impart their wisdom on these rookies, right? And that'll actually come up again when we talk about the rookie that got involved in that viral video. But I think if we had both, I tend to think that you'd actually have less shootings like you're seeing in Times Square. I think these perps are emboldened to carry in Times Square for a reason, because they know that the current NYPD is not like your father's NYPD or even your older brother's NYPD.
That's true, dude. And I was talking about it last episode, like Times Square. The posture in Times Square was always, you saw bomb sniffing dogs, you saw members of the NYPD in heavy gear and heavy vests and helmets and with long guns, and they would flood Times Square just as like a show of force right outside of the Times Square substation. So people would think twice. There was always a heavy presence of cops in the NYPD, plus just cops patrolling, cops walking around. We had a lot of overtime details that would occur in Times Square as well. So, they would just flood the cops each day, each night. And, now today it's like it's not there. And I think that's where the manpower comes into play. And, look, I think they overstaffed. I don't want to say they overstaffed the parade yesterday, but I think that they didn't properly deploy out and strategize how that parade should go, because there was a lot of things, and I know we'll get to that. But I mean, I think that if you had a proper deployment of manpower, this never happens. Like, this doesn't happen in a crowd of people. You know, I think they say if you're standing in Times Square and you stand there for like 20 minutes, or I forget the exact time frame, but like 100,000 people will pass you. You know, I know it's true about Grand Central as well too. Like, if you just stand outside there for a couple of minutes on 42nd, you know, and to think that you're there, we have the World Cups here, we have tourism here, there's World Cup events in Times Square, there's a lot of businesses that have a lot of um sales going on related to the World Cup there. So they're trying to attract people into this area, right? They're trying to get that tourism money to flood into Times Square. And this is like a third world. You know, you have people walking on the street outside of the barriers, and now they're just shooting into the crowd. I mean, by the grace of God, nobody was hit. And like, we got to be honest. Like, you know, we were continuing being told that shootings are down. When they say shootings are down, they mean that people being hit by a bullet is down. You know, because I mean, I was just scouring social media yesterday, and I felt like it was like almost like every hour, shooting here, shooting there, shots fired here, shots fired there. I think there were about 6 or 7 people that were actually struck last night. I think 3 in the Bronx alone. But it doesn't actually say the amount of time bullets were fired. You got to think right here, this actually isn't really considered traditionally a shooting. This will not be documented on a criminal complaint. This will be documented as a reckless endangerment. This is a clear attempted murder, and it's reckless. Is it reckless on a scale that, yeah, you could have injured other people, yeah, but he could have seriously injured and killed other people by firing into that crowd. Thankfully, no innocent passerbyers were struck, didn't hit his target. But, you know, you got to think about these incidents when you hear crimes down in New York City. We're at historic lows in crime. It's like, you're at historic lows in crime, but during a Knicks parade, at a World Cup event, people feel comfortable and emboldened enough to pull their gun out and let a round out and violate your so-called gun-free zone. You know, the state had put that in, and it's ridiculous. Honestly, in my opinion, it's telling tax-paying, law-abiding Americans, we don't trust you. We don't trust you. Trust us to protect you. And so it's not just Times Square that's a gun-free zone. It's also MTA. You're not allowed on any MTA buses, trains, not even at the bus stop. You know, it's considered, it would be, you would be guilty. And you're more likely to get arrested than this purpose, just carrying. So why? Because you're an honest person, you have ID, and you got everything to lose. So I think that's where I see the big miss in New York City. I'm not saying that New York City should be the Wild West and people should be out there gunning this guy down. But there are times you could be in a really bad spot in New York City, and you should have the right to defend yourself as a law-abiding gun concealed carry permit holder. There's no reason why we're in my opinion, I think that we're violating the Second Amendment. You know, I think it goes really way beyond the Second Amendment to say, yeah, you could have your gun. You could even carry a gun. You just can't carry in these spots.
So this is the area we're talking about. This is the official boundaries. I don't know if you could see the pictures a little bit low, but these are the official boundaries of the gun-free zone. Okay, they extend from 6th Avenue all the way to 53rd Street, and then from 53rd Street down 8th Avenue to 48th Street, and from 48th Street down 9th Avenue to back to 40th Street, and from 40th Street on the west back to the east on 6th Avenue. So apparently they think perps are going to actually care about all of this. And the gun-free zones, the whole idea came about in 2019. Initially 2019, but it was created in 2022. Right. the initial idea began when a few gun laws were brought before the Supreme Court, and they would be later on rebuffed by the Supreme Court. And it's actually a little bit easier to obtain a firearm permit in New York City now. However, the city still, I can tell you firsthand, because I have to go the civilian route in order to get my permit now. But the city does still put up their BS in front of you to get a permit. But I'm gonna play a video from that time period too, a news video when they initially got it, just to show you guys. Let's put that up on stage.
Weapons laws take effect.
And the city council is revealing what parts of Times Square will be designated as gun-free zones. CBS 2's Dick Brennan here now with a look at those restrictions. Dick?
Well, Christina Maurice, the area is wider than you think. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down New York's strict gun carry laws. So the question since then, how to stop places like Times Square from becoming the OK Corral? Well, now we're finding out. It seems many New Yorkers support new restrictions on guns, whether on the subways.
Just police should have guns on the subway.
Make you feel safer that way.
Yeah, definitely.
In churches.
I would not like to see a few people with guns on them.
In schools.
Why should anyone without a permit for a gun be able to carry a gun into a school? That makes no sense.
Or at the crossroads of the world, Times Square.
Times Square is a dense, complex, and highly trafficked area.
And so the city council unveiled plans to lay out the new law of the land. Carrying guns will be banned in a wide rectangle from 40th to 53rd Streets between 6th and 8th Avenues, also from 40th to 48th between 8th and 9th.
The signage will be placed at every entry point in the zone.
50 million tourists come to Times Square annually, and 360,000 pedestrians pass through daily. The NYPD says with crime on the rise, the last thing they need is more guns on the streets and subways. But the city was forced to conform with the U.S. Supreme Court decision, making it easier to get gun permits.
This feels very surreal to me that we're talking about a New York where people are going to be allowed to carry handguns in their pocket.
But not everyone thinks the move to ban guns is an open and shut case.
I mean, it honestly depends. It's a 50-50 because some people might feel safe with the gun. Some people might not feel safe.
And I think there are cases where there is a chance where there's a good guy with a gun. But at the same time, you also have people that are criminals or maybe don't have the best intentions. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Also falling into sensitive areas, subways, houses of worship, and other locations. Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams are expected to highlight the new rules and locations tomorrow. Maurice.
Dude, that was the height of stupidity, dude. The height of stupidity.
Yeah. Notice Robert Barrows was there.
Yeah.
He's the former why is this?
Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Initiatives.
Yeah. Hold on, John.
Yeah. You're breaking up. But yeah, so that whole law comes in. That whole law comes in after Supreme Court rules against New York, because for years and years in New York, law-abiding New Yorkers couldn't get gun carry permits. You couldn't get a concealed carry permit. They put all these arbitrary rules in place, like, no, you need to own a business. You need to carry $10,000 a day to the bank. If you can't show any of that, you're not getting a gun carry permit, which is ridiculous. It's like, how do you think New York is so much different than the other 49 states? Like, how do you think, like, we're totally different than Florida. We're totally different than Texas. The Constitution of the United States does not matter here in New York City. And for years and years and years, they got away with it. But for a court case that was finally ruled that, no, wait, you can't do that. Like, you could have certain restrictions for people and who could carry, but you can't make them arbitrary and ridiculous so that the average person can't defend themselves or their home. And so almost immediately upon that ruling, you heard Eric Botcha there in city council. I believe I don't think Botcha is no longer in city council. I think he's in the assembly now, because they just jumped from grift to grift to grift. He says it's like surreal. Like, what? It's surreal that you live in America and there's the Second Amendment. Like, what are we talking about here? And so what they did right off the gate is Kathy Hochul comes in and she puts in another unconstitutional law and now says, well, all right, yeah, you got your permits now, but you just can't carry anyway. Like, you can't carry in an MTA and you can't carry in that zone. Now, if you're a retired NYPD cop, if you're a retired HR 218 holder, excuse me, and you're considered a retired police officer, you are exempt from that. There is an exemption there for you. But what's the case that they're trying to say there? Like the Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Information, he's like, well, it's a very dense area. So are you saying that cops are much better trained than the average gun holder? Because I would make the case that I don't think they are. I think they meet about the same exact requirements, you know? So, and I get it. I get you don't want guns in a totally dense area and you don't want it to be the Wild West. I get it. But the way that we treat law-abiding citizens versus the way we treat criminals are completely different. It's completely different. You know, I'll even argue that if you took a look, like a real hard look at all the criminal court cases in New York City, I would argue that a concealed carry permit holder that is found in violation of this gun-free zone, even retired cops with their concealed carry, if for some reason their shirt lifted by accident, they're no longer concealed carry, and a cop goes ahead and effects that arrest, I'll argue that that person will have a stiffer penalty, pay more fines, there will be more criminal liability, more criminal and civil liability on that individual's part than a person who's just carrying an illegal firearm, who's up to no good.
Yeah, you know they would arbitrarily enforce that, you know, depending on who you are and whether they have, like, if imagine John goes to Times Square and gets involved into a shooting now, you know they would throw that at him. Yeah. But anyway, you guys saw the video and heard what they were saying, that it's not just Times Square. It involves churches, parks, theaters, and the subway. So I think it's crazy. Absolutely absurd, you know. But did you guys notice also that Robert Barrows, who ran Strategic Initiatives, was there, right? We keep talking about how much Strategic Initiatives is at the heart of all the bad policies that are in the NYPD, all the bad woke policies that you know are funneled into the NYPD from like Wall Street and academia. It always comes back to this bureau. Okay, we talked about it a lot last time. We talked about Alex Crone, who's now the Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Initiatives, and it's gonna come up time and time again. Okay, but yeah, since they passed that, there's been 6 firearm discharges at Times Square. And the latest one you saw in the video that John showed you, which was yesterday. And I think
I don't think that's accurate at all, by the way. That's not accurate at all.
Well, the thing is, there's been a lot more in the area of that precinct. It's just specifically at Times Square is what you're seeing, specifically on 7th Avenue.
I don't believe it.
And Broadway. Yeah. But there's been a lot more in some of the side streets surrounding Times Square too. It's just I did a query of that specific area, but again, I think the fact that we're having it there at the heart of the NYC tourism industry is just terrible, you know. When I come around to me again, I'll talk about the just how big that area is in terms of revenue, tourism revenue.
Mayor of Bodybuilding says it's reported the shooter was an illegal alien. Now, listen, you know, we've heard this from New York Democrats over and over again. They commit crimes at a less rate than Americans, so we shouldn't be concerned with that if that, in fact, is the case. You know, that's the thing is, I mean, I think we really, you know, we hone in on politicians a lot on the show. We beat up the Republicans, maybe unfairly sometimes, but I think a lot of it deservingly. But the Democrats are really, they're lost, man. They're not American. They're not following American beliefs at all whatsoever. You know, I always carry my gun to church, always. and I carry my gun to church for a good reason, because Catholic churches throughout this country, not even in just New York City, but especially in New York City, they're not properly secure. The city doesn't properly secure them. I see a huge emphasis from the NYPD on synagogues and mosques, but I never see that same level of security around churches, especially Catholic church. Go to St. Patty's, walk in. It's the most iconic. It's the most iconic Catholic church in the entire world. You go walk right in there, you won't see one cop. You won't see one. And so we Catholics are under attack. There's just as much anti-Catholic and Christian hate around this world as there is Muslim and Jewish hate. And yet we don't have that same level of protection. And what New York State is saying is that you Catholics, you can't protect and defend yourself while you worship. You're completely vulnerable. We'll keep you safe. Don't worry. We're not going to give you any cops, but we'll keep you safe. I'm going to be headed into the city a little later. I don't know if I'm going to make it today, but one of my trips, I'm going to stop at the old St. Pat's, because at the old St. Pat's, they have a statue that I want to see. It's a shrine on the outside, and it's to Dagger John. I forget his name, but he was the Bishop of New York City at the time. Or I don't even know if he was the actual bishop, but he became a bishop. But they called him Dagger John because at the time there were all these anti-Catholic riots happening across the country, and they were burning churches. I believe it was either in Boston or Philadelphia. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. It's either in Boston or Philly that they started burning Catholic churches. And so with the Catholic community at that time, they were the poor immigrant community, right? It was the Irish that just came in. What was happening was they were like, there's never any cops here. We get zero protection. There's no protection here. So what Dagger John did, and they call him Dagger John because he used to carry a cross, and at the tip of the cross, it looked like a dagger, but he would carry it everywhere he went. And so what happened was he basically formed his own militia to protect the Catholic churches at the time. And he told us the politicians, he told all of them, he said, look, he said, if something happens to one of my churches, we're going to burn the city down. And there was enough dock workers, there was enough Irish dock workers and enough laborers at that time where it was a real threat to New York City. So what did New York City do? They started sending cops to police Catholic institutions. But now that's dissipated. That's gone. Go to any Catholic church on a Sunday. Tell me you see a cop. Tell me. You don't, because it's a diminished police department, right? And we know the whole racial equity plan in New York City, and for some reason, Catholics across this city became the privileged. I don't know when that happened. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how we fell into the world of white privilege. But to sit there and tell people you can't bring your firearm to church, you're in a movie theater, you're legally allowed to carry. You can't do that. You can't bring it to a theater. But if you're a retired cop, and when they first created that law, I was flipping out because it didn't have an exemption for cops. When they first created the law, there was no exemption for cops, and I was losing my mind. I was still on the job. I was like, what are you talking about? There's nothing in there. There's no exception. No, not you guys. We're not talking about you guys. And I'm like, well, in the law, it doesn't say that you're not talking about us. So you are talking about us. So what are you talking about? So what they did is they went back and they revamped the law and they put in an exemption for cops and retired cops. And I'm like, this is the level of lawmaker or politician you have across New York State and across New York City. They don't even think. Their brains are not even there. And so they're just so hopped up on taking your rights away and leaving you vulnerable. They don't want to face the criminal. They're going to come after you, the taxpayer. I mean, honestly, infuriating to me. And honestly, it's like one of those things that I don't blame people. They all say that we're pessimists, right? Like, oh, you don't want to bring your kids to the parade. You don't want to bring your kids to Times Square when we talk about cops. But how could anybody want to? You're literally defenseless. You're putting yourself in the hands of a police department that has proven themselves time and time again that they don't have the manpower that they claim, that crime's at historic lows, and yet every day you open up the paper, you go on social media, and you walk the streets, you take the train, you take a bus. I mean, it's I'm on Staten Island, dude. I can't believe how many homeless EDPs are out here. I can't believe it. I took my kids to a restaurant, the old what is the name of it? Remember Sahara? I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Sahara. It's like a Turkish Mediterranean spot that was in Coney Island, right on Coney Island Avenue, and they had since closed. They reopened in Dungan Hills in my old neighborhood on Highland Boulevard. So like there's really no parking there, so I had to park like around the block, and I walk around the block. I'm walking around the block with my wife and kids. There's 3 homeless EDPs just walking up and down that area. And I'm like, this was never like this, and you know how many cops I've said it, how many cops I saw last night? 0. Like, and I'm like, and not that, not that they were bothering anyone, not that they were doing anything, but to sit there and say that this is the same city that it was pre-COVID, it's just a lie, dude. It's a total lie.
Yeah. So just a little background. John was referring to the nativist riots that began in Philadelphia in the mid 1800s, and they were burning churches and killing Catholics at that point. I think in a lot of ways, we kind of let them do that to us. Catholics. I think to politicians, you really don't matter anymore, and I think we've let them do that to us, And again, I'm gonna unfortunately bring up the scamdemic, because I saw during the scamdemic how you could go to you could go to the liquor store, right? You could go to the liquor store, but you couldn't go to church, and that stuff is a lot of people should have been up in arms about them telling you you can't go to church, and you saw what they did to the Jewish community in Brooklyn, who wanted to go to temple, but I have to think Catholics, we let them do that to us, but and just to tell you how crazy these Democrats are, right, that the push is now on to ban 3D printers in not just New York State, but in other states too, because of the possibility that you may create a 3D printed firearm. Keep in mind, if you were to create an entirely 3D printed firearm, you may have 3 rounds, 3 or 6 before that's entirely unusable. And the point is, you still need metal parts in order to make it fully a firearm, okay? And it's just not there yet. And yet they want to ban 3D printing entirely because of the possibility that some people may use it for wrongdoing, okay? And it's terrible, because I've talked about it before, how, not to go on a tangent, but Trump wants to bring back jobs to America, and I think these 3D printers are very important to being able for the regular guy to be able to build parts that in the past he would have to pay a large corporation for. But you see, Democrats are so agenda driven, right? These progressives are so agenda driven that they'd rather take away that ability from the regular person if it means banning the potential creation of firearms. It's completely batshit crazy, But what was I gonna say? But before we go on to the next topic, I think it's not a coincidence that you're seeing this violence in places like Times Square, okay? Because you see how much they've loosened the penalties for criminality in the city, while at the same time penalizing legal ownership of say like firearms, and punishing the regular guy. I think you're seeing all this lawlessness over there because the purposes themselves now feel like government or parts of government are on their side. they're emboldened to do stuff like that, and they also see how much these people have hurt the police departments, hurt certainly in New York, in the case of the NYPD. They see how much the department has changed and how docile like the new crop of guys are, and how afraid they are of certainly going hands on. So naturally, you're going to see more incidents like that come up.
Yeah, I ran into one of my friends, and he was a cop for about 6 years. He was a cop for about 6 years, and he left, and he went to sanitation, and like unheard of, right? Like I never knew anyone that did that. Like he was the first, but now I know several since him that have done that. And and so we were talking, and he was just like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "I've been out a few years now." He's like, "And the 120 is about half the size it was when I was there." He's like, "The squads are completely diminished," and he was talking about the patrol squads. He's like, "And honestly, I'm so glad I left the job. Like, I'm so glad I made the move I made." There's a Boston sanitation now, and when you look at the rhetoric coming out of city council, the assembly, the Senate, the governor's office, the mayor's office, it's never about like actually any real public safety solutions. It's all about funding grifts. The big push now is not, when this kid is caught, they don't want this kid to spend any time in jail. They don't want him to face any type of criminal justice whatsoever. Right? No jail, no parole, none of this. We became a decarceral state and city. And by decarceral, I mean they don't want to put people in prison. And you just got to look around all of the talk about closing Rikers. We have I forget how many billions and billions of dollars it is, but there's a 5 borough-based jail plan that's coming into effect. And the first jail is already being built in Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, well, I'm just going to say in the whole city, there's about, oh man, why am I drawing a blank now? Okay, I think it was about 7,000 people. Don't quote me on these numbers, but it's roughly about these numbers. So I think currently right now, the population of Rikers Island is about 7,000 people. And they want to move to this borough-based jail system. And the 4 borough-based, because Staten Island's not one in the plan, but in the 4 borough-based jail system, they could only house about 3,500 people, something like that. So they're already talking about, well, how do we get the people out that are in? How do we get the people out that are in? And how do we stop this level of arrests and prosecution and people awaiting trial going over to Rikers while they're awaiting trial? How do we stop that from happening? How do we cut that in half and then bring it down even further? And I think we know how they do that. They stop arresting people. They stop investigating crimes. And I laugh at like when I listen to like Tish or LaPetri speak about how they brought down larcenies from stores in city council and how they deal with domestic violence. And they pretend like the NYPD is like we never investigated low-level crimes before, low-level larcenies. And I'm like, I don't know what police department you guys ever worked for, but I know for a fact the squad did that. And we did that often, especially when there were repeat people. Especially when there were repeat people. I don't know when we went away from that. So if you want to talk about how you stopped doing that a few years ago under Eric Adams, and now how you're having to bring that back because crime rose so high as a result of these decarceral pro-criminal approaches to public safety, if you want to talk about that, but like this isn't anything new. And the same thing with domestic violence. I heard Tish and LaPetri speak about domestic violence, and I'm like, we've been doing that since the day I walked in the New York City Police Department. Like, I don't know what we're talking about here anymore. It's just like, yeah, you know what we do? We go out and we take a proactive approach and we interview people. And if somebody's wanted, we go out and get them. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, we always used to do that. And I think they're kind of exposing the hand of what's been going on. They haven't been reporting. They've been closing out complaints. They've been leaving people that are wanted out there on New York City streets. And all of it's a result of what we've been talking about for a very long time on this show, that the manpower is diminished, that even the people, whatever their assignments are in the New York City Police Department, whether you're in domestic violence, whether you're in major case squad, whether you're in working with HSI and you're in some federal unit, the majority of your week is spent doing everything else but your job. And then, like, what's today's date? Today's the 19th.
That is true.
Happy June 19th, by the way. I know the DEA, I know Scott Monroe decided to have the picnic today. So I don't know, we haven't heard a statement from the Guardians. I'm still waiting for Pat Gordon, and happy Pride Month, Pat Gordon, Sal Greco, Jack Stern, Eric Adams. Happy Pride Month to you guys if I didn't give you wishes earlier. But it's you sit there and you're like, what happened here, man? Like, what happened here? It's June 19th, and we got a couple of people in the chat here saying how they're already burnt out. They're already burnt out. It's not even the end of June. 4th of July hasn't kicked off. We haven't even gotten to the heart of the summer yet, and all the cops are overworked. They're all tired. I don't know anyone that's not talking to me with a groggy voice right now. Yo, what's up, bro? Yeah, let's try to get together. I don't know, though. I don't know, like, when I could go out to dinner. Nobody knows what plans are. They've worked for four days in a row. They don't know what's going on. And that's the entire department, dude. I don't care where you are, what you do, unless you're part of the protected few, unless you're part of that. I got 4 collars and I'm protected. I get my overtime, half my overtime spent sleeping, So, and I think all a result of what we always say, it's diminished.
You mean the cash pass program? If you,
but now I think it's kind of the cash for hugs program. They went away from the X and R rated, and they're just going to like a more PG-13 approach to it. But it's still it's still the nepotism and cronyism and all the woke DEI. We got to put you ahead because you're this. We need one of this, one of that. Hey, John, actually we need a Italian guy with Catholic. Why don't you come along? We'll put you part of the team. We need the multicultural when we take those photos. We need it to look like we're a diverse department.
Yeah. Well, I got bad news for you, John, because that, we're not going to have time to fully talk about this today. I think this deserves its own show. Okay. But this is now passed, right? It's a new measure to force judges to visit prisons, right? So for every felon they sentence, they're going to have to make a visit to prison. I don't know how they're going to be able to, as a practical measure, how they're going to be able to put this into play. But it's now part of law, and it's scheduled to take effect in January 1st of 2028. It's part of the State Unified Court Systems Amendments to Part 17 of the Rules for Chief Judges. Okay, New York State will be the first state to require judges serving in criminal and family court to visit a jail, prison, or detention center once a year. Once a year. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think New York State, it's not just New York City. I think New York State is putting everything they can in place for you not to arrest people or sentence them, or lock them up. And I think a lot of it, I'm sorry to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I think a lot of it goes back to the budget, and the state. It not only is the city broke, but the state is getting there as well. Yeah. So yeah. But I said last go around I was just going to quickly mention how important Times Square is. And again, Times Square, just so you guys know, is 10% of the city's jobs and 50% of the economic output. This is from the Times Square lines themselves. Times Square is very, very important, okay, when it comes to the tourism revenue that we get. So I talked about it before that in third world countries, when you screw with the tourism dollars, they'll kill you, okay? If the government isn't going to lock you up, well, there's going to be street justice on you, because a lot of people's jobs and livelihood depends upon the tourism money that comes in. So if you help create a an atmosphere of that particular tourist trap or tourist area is unsafe, the street justice is going to get you because you're screwing with people's money. So I think again the city should keep that in mind, that how important Times Square is, and if you have guys shooting their firearms there or getting into gang beefs or getting into stabbings, and there has been a lot of stabbings in that area too, by the way, right? You're screwing with the city's money and you're screwing with people's livelihood, right? So there really should be much more attention paid to this stuff in Times Square. The criminals should be terrified of even showing up at Times Square and doing their bullshit, but apparently that's no longer the case. And I'm calling for the city and the job to step up their game when it comes to Times Square. If you have that, remember there was a Times Square, I think it was called the Times Square Initiative with rookies. They put a whole bunch of rookies on foot posts in that area, and if that's not working, guys, that has to be changed. Either you need, again, criminals should be terrified of showing up to Times Square and doing their bullshit. But apparently now you're seeing all kinds of crap over there, stabbing, shootings. And I think we have to wake up here because we're in a fiscal crunch and we need tourists coming to Times Square and feeling that it's the safest place in the city, So.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty wild, man. Like, I remember like that Times Square being considered like a good gig to go work. Like that's, it's good. Nothing happens. We're just hanging out. We're worried about terrorism. You're not doing much work there. We're just keeping the tourists happy. We're keeping them safe. And then I remember it was about 2018, 2019. All of a sudden, it just kind of just changed until like it was an A house. Working anywhere around Times Square, Midtown South. It became like, and it was all of that decarceral approach to law enforcement, that weak posture. And we're maintaining that weak posture in Times Square even today. If there was that proactive approach and there was a strong arrest posture there given out by the NYPD, like we're not going to tolerate any acting up in this area. We're not going to tolerate packs of roving gangs and fist fights and people carrying weapons, pulling out knives. People wouldn't pull out knives and wouldn't pull out guns if we even staffed it properly. They wouldn't feel comfortable enough to do it. If you see 6 dudes standing on the side with long guns, you're not pulling out a gun, dude, because what do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to get lit up, right? If you see bomb sniffing dogs and gun sniffing dogs, do you think people want to carry a gun in Times Square? Like, do you think someone would feel comfortable to carry a gun or a weapon or a knife? No, they wouldn't. But they do. And why do they? Because, again, it goes back to the manpower. We're weak. We don't properly staff it. We can't properly staff it now. And the way that we're policing currently, and we've been since de Blasio, we have this hands-off style approach to policing, and all we do is flood zones with cops. That is the only thing we could do to deter crime. And even that, because of the weak posture, it's stopping to actually start to deter anything. It's actually, and I think the parade is the greatest example of that. Like, it doesn't even matter how many cops you have anymore because your posture is weak, your tolerance level is way too high, and everybody feels comfortable doing everything. Perps should not feel comfortable walking into Times Square with a fire on them. Perps should not feel comfortable walking into Times Square harassing people. Mentally challenged EDP comes walking into Times Square. They should be dealt with immediately. Stopped immediately. Ambulance called. Send them off. If we can't keep Times Square clean, how are we keeping anything clean?
Mm-hmm. It's true. You showed that video earlier of the actual shooting and the crowds of people running. There are going to be people there. I guarantee you there's at least a couple tourists in there that are going to be shaken about this. you know, and they're not going to be coming back to that area again. I guarantee you, they're never going to forget about that. Okay. Because I mean, we tend to get desensitized to a lot of it, you know, as cops. You know, how many times you're in a football somewhere and then you hear shots fired in the background. Oh, yeah, it's a PJs, you know. You're doing a vertical and you're hearing shots fired. You're on a project rooftop and you know you're seeing you're seeing people on the other on a roof a couple buildings away, you know, firing rounds in the air, or you know you get desensitized to all of it, you know. But regular people, you know, they don't, you know, most people don't even go to ranges or have no experience with firearms. So to be walking around in Times Square with, you know, on vacation, you know, observing the sights, and then all of a sudden you're running in fear of your life is something that's traumatizing. And I can guarantee you there's some people there who are in the middle of this who are never going to come back. And that's a shame because again, this is it's an economic driver of the city, Times Square. Okay. And $58 billion of direct economic output comes out of that entire area, you know, cumulative. You know, we're talking not just the tourism, but businesses in that area. Okay. And I just think it's a shame that we even that there should be no tolerance for any of that sort of stuff over there, you know. And it's not just, you know, it's not just that those people experienced it, but they're gonna go back home and tell other people. When other people ask them, how was your trip to New York? How was Times Square? You know, that is gonna take precedent over any other thing they experienced in Times Square. They could have been having a great night, but now they're running for their lives in fear. They're gonna tell people that above everything else. So I think this is a shame, and I think the city needs to pay more attention to that area. And I saw a comment here from Stay Trained Up about the South Bronx. I'm not disagreeing. Stay Trained Up. I know the South Bronx is there are parts of it that are rough. I'm not saying that we should, you know. Oh, here it is, right? Times Square. Man, have you seen Third Avenue of Bronx? It's a damn horse. I agree. I agree. I'm not saying to get focus off of those areas too. What I'm simply saying is that you know we have to be mindful of the economic well-being of the city too, and where the areas like Times Square that are very vital to the revenue that comes in the city, in particular the tourism revenue, have to be protected. Because if tourists stop coming to the city, then we go back to the bad old days of Times Square, and nobody wants that. Okay. As much as I have no interest in going to Times Square, I think it should be protected because tourists still care about Times Square. Tourists from all over the world, you know, they could be from the furthest corner of this globe, but they hear about Times Square and they want to come and visit Times Square. And that is important to everybody in the city, regardless of whether you live in Times Square or you live in the far corners of the outer boroughs. Because again, we need that revenue, especially now when the city is trying to defer your pensions to save $1.8 billion. If think of it, if less tourists come here, that's more money that the city is going to have to find somewhere. And you know where they're going to look to find it again? Is going to be you, the workers, and you, the retirees. And you're already seeing that, and you're seeing that in their push to change your healthcare, your retiree healthcare, and you're seeing that in their obsession with deferring your pension and getting that 1.8 billion for their current fiscal mess. So I think regardless of who you are, Times Square should be Times Square, and the money that's generated by Times Square should be of the utmost importance to you.
You know, so I always go to Rikers Island for everything because I like, you know, when I look at Rikers Island, it should be the easiest scenario to keep people safe in. It should be easy to keep weapons, drugs, assaults down, sexual assaults down, rapes. It should be the easiest thing. These people really their constitutional rights are suspended. They're stuck behind four walls. They're in a cage. And our politicians, who all speak a good game, every single one of them, they tell you what a great job they're going to do. I'm like, if you can't keep people behind four walls that have zero constitutional rights, zero search, they're accessible to search any day of the week. Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to them. Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to nothing. You know, even parts of the First Amendment they're restricted from doing while they're in prison, while they're in lockdown. If you can't keep drugs and weapons and assaults out of those facilities, how could we ever possibly expect you to go out into a city like New York, in a dynamic place, in a fluid city? You can't even implement policies that work in Rikers Island. How are you going to do it in a fluid, moving city where everyone, like where the Constitution does apply? You're not able to do it because you're an incompetent person. And I look at Rikers Island as the perfect example of that, right? And so what Marlon's saying is, look at Times Square as that example. We have Times Square. You know, the city often talks about equity, right? Everything's equity, right? We want to make sure everything's equitable, racial equity. Let's look at equity. How do we take equity? We take from abundance and then we spread it out, right? We spread it out, right? That's basically what they're saying. Spread the wealth, right? That's what New York's saying without saying it. They just call it equity now. And you got a place like Times Square brings in billions and billions of dollars in tax revenue. And you're not able to protect that. So now let's shift over to the South Bronx. Here's a place that it's a drain on society. How much tax revenue is coming out of that? I'll tell you right now, not a lot, dude. Not a lot. How many people work in there paying into the system now? Not a lot. How many people are living off the system now? A lot. A damn lot. How much government subsidized housing, buildings, businesses, non-for-profits? How much money is getting poured into the South Bronx over there to give them some form of equity? Right? How are we going to give them that when we can't even protect where the money's coming from? We can't even keep that safe. Of course the South Bronx is going to be, but it's not just the South Bronx, it's every other borough. And that's why, like, I said it earlier, but like when Eric says that, it's the barometer of how New York City is faring. I mean, he's not wrong. Like, it's 100% accurate. It's 100% accurate. Put a thermometer there, and whatever. If it's on fire there, bro, it's on fire. It's worse everywhere else. So if you can't competently police that area, then you can't competently police the rest of the city. $58 billion coming out. $58 billion. You know, and again, like I said, I remember a time in the city when I could walk in Times Square with my girlfriend at 3:00 in the morning and nobody was bothering me. You know why? And I could jump in the train down there and nobody was bothering me. You know why? Because the NYPD had a proactive approach to crime and a strong masculine stance when it came to dealing with minor crimes and larger crimes. And people were afraid to do bad things in New York City because guess what? They knew there was going to be a consequence. And today, whether that consequence was a weekend in jail and a slap on the wrist down the road or a serious consequence for carrying a firearm. I mean, does anyone forget the Plaxico Burress incident? Plaxico Burress started carrying a firearm, lived in Jersey. He started carrying a firearm because Giants were getting tied up. NFL players were getting tied up in the condo complex he lived and robbed. He was carrying it for his own protection. He was in a club. He wasn't properly wearing that gun. And the gun slipped. He grabbed it. Boom. Shot himself. The guy went to jail. He went to jail. What are the chances that kid that opened fire in Times Square that he's going to do any time in jail? I'll guarantee you this. He's not going to. Plaxico Burress spent more time in jail than that kid was ever going to do.
Yeah, I saw a comment here from Samantha Guccione. Samantha is commenting about the what I just mentioned with the judges, and it's saying it's 1 year, it's one a year for now, Samantha. But the larger point here is that they're pushing, they're pushing other ideas that'll make you that's trying to dissuade parts of the legal system from being active and penalizing criminals. Okay. And I think this is just the opening salvo. I think they're going to do other measures too, just like they've hit it. They've done a multi-pronged approach to the police department, right? You've introduced things like the diaphragm law, which has made arresting a perp. It's now a team sport. You need 5 guys to arrest a perp, right? You've gotten rid of qualified immunity. You've you've pushed out senior personnel with things like the scamdemic. Okay, senior experienced personnel, and now you've got precincts with 60%. You've got a department with over 60% younger guys right now. Okay, you've pushed bail reform. Okay, I mean, I could go down the list with all these laws that have passed and these policies that have passed. They're meant to prevent cops from being proactive and from arresting people. And now you're seeing them attack a new vector, which is the judges. And I think there's going to be more coming down the pipeline in terms of the preventing the judicial system from actually sentencing people to prison. They don't want that, because I think, again, when you sentence people to jail, when you send people to jail, the state or the city has to pay for their costs of housing and lodging and their safety in prison as well. And I just think they're looking to, by any means necessary, cut those expenses. And unfortunately, that's going to keep a lot of perps on the street, and it's going to be a lot of your problems, guys. Okay, because you're the ones who are going to be dealing with these guys more so on the street. And as we saw this whole week with the Knicks celebration, right? You see how just powerless the job is when you have streets filled with when you have an overwhelming amount of lawlessness on the street at one time. So I'm just saying that you gotta zoom out and look at the bigger picture here and see that what the grand plan is, and how this is just the start of it. Just like how in the police department, the start of it was all the progressive crap that started infiltrating in the mid 2010s, and by the time we get to now, again, all those laws that have passed since that have handicapped you guys. So it's something I think we're going to talk about in the future, and I think I think we should keep eyes on that, because I think there's going to be more coming down the pipeline in terms of judges themselves.
Yeah, so Latrice Walker, she's an assemblywoman out of Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
She was a big supporter of Clean Slate Act. What Clean Slate Act is wipe people's wiped people's records clean. I believe after 7 years for some crime, and I think after 3 years for lesser crimes, right? And so people start over, so their criminal history is gone, doesn't exist anymore. I mean, and then if you look at that, and that should be the basis the union uses, like, look, we clean people's criminal records, but yet cops, and these people were found guilty or pleaded guilty, right? There was a trial, there was due process, all that. Cops' records, regardless if it's substantiated, unsubstantiated, whatever, these are administrative failures. They're open forever, right? And so Sam Berger and I think Jessica Scarcella Spanton or whatever, they have some legislation where, well, if if you're exonerated of any allegations made against you, basically it's found that that allegation was frivolous, they're going to take that off your record. And so I spoke to Sam Berger, nice guy. You know, he actually called me the day his newborn was born. So, you know, I was pretty impressed. I was like, wow, you know, the guy's like getting back to people. But he's like, look, we could only do so much. I don't think we're going to be able to seal other arrests. And I said that. I was like, we have the Clean Slate Act. You're sealing criminals' records. How are you not able to seal retired cops and even cops that are active? How are you not able to seal their records later on? I mean, this isn't crimes. These are administrative failures. Whether it's, and I was like, in most of these cases, become unsubstantiated, which your bill does nothing to address, right? So you have an unsubstantiated claim, meaning I couldn't prove or disprove it, and the majority of those are frivolous. And it's like it's not even rising to the level of crime. So why can't we get that? And he was basically like saying, I'll never get it passed. That's basically what he said to me. And I was like, okay. I was like, whatever. You know, I gave it a shot. I tried. But so you have that piece of legislation. So now Latrice Walker and that legislation passed. And so now people get clean slates, right? So now Latrice Walker is actually pushing other legislation. I forget what she calls it. And I was just looking for it while you were talking, Marlon. But basically, the legislation is that she wants people who are not eligible for parole to become eligible for parole. And then I forget how many years it is. Basically, if they're good for a time period, whatever it is, I don't remember exactly what it is. I'll get it and I'll probably post it again later. But I think it was like a 3 or 5 year mark. Like if they're in prison for 3 or 5 years, that they're now eligible for parole and they could be released on good behavior. And there was no limit to that. Didn't matter if they killed the cop, didn't matter what their sentences was, didn't matter anything. And it came right on the heels of when dealers, like that piece of legislation came right on the heels of when Diller's murderer was sentenced. So, and I was like, so basically you're saying this kid could get out in 5 years? Like, what are we talking about here? You know, and that's the legislation. So they're continuously moving the goalpost, and they're continuously making New York State and New York City uninhabitable and unsafe. And you're going to see Times Square, the barometer, continue to rise there, and crime continue to rise. And if it rises in Times Square, it's coming to your neighborhood.
I'll put up the I see Patrice Walker. She has something called the Second Look Act.
Second Look. There you go. That's the one.
Yeah.
She wants an exploratory committee for it now. So, but this is what does that mean? That means she's going to draft a bill, and this is going to be on the slate probably next year.
Yeah. Second Look Act. It says the goal is establish a pathway for individuals who have demonstrated extraordinary rehabilitation to request a sentence modification from the court. Says sponsor, but this sentence reform proposal permits judges to review and potentially reconsider or reduce lengthy sentences. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. See, I saw Mike Freed also bring up the 58. Yeah, guys, these are all you notice the pattern here. It's all meant to prevent people from being locked up. Okay, and these people, where are these people gonna be? You know, these people are going to be on the street, and it's going to be your problem. Okay, it's going to be your problem. It's absolutely nuts, you know, that we're heading down this route. But I think it's because they're in so much economic trouble, you know, that they're looking to cut costs by any means necessary. But it's absolutely batshit crazy, you know. And I, you know, when I see things like this, I'm like, man. You know, I really question, I even question, like, why am I still here? You know, man, craziness, absolute craziness. Just anytime you think these legislators in New York State have jumped the shark, they take one more step, and it's just absolutely crazy, you know.
All right, so let's switch topics now. I think we went on that for a little long, but I mean, basically, it's not looking good. And you know, I know the Times Square Alliance, Tom Harris, I know he listens to the show sometimes. Yeah, I think that you're getting played, dude. I'll be honest with you. I think that just like the community council members, they give you a nice song and a dance, and I think Zohar Mamdani gives you a song and a dance as well. And I think that the posture in Times Square is weak, and the manpower that they put there is not proper as to what it used to be. And I think you know that with your own eyes because you've been there a long time, dude. So let's get over to the parade now, because I was supposed to go. I woke up, like I said, I was not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up about 6:30. I had about 10 texts already. Don't come. And ferry was a disaster. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going. I was like, screw it. My New Yorker kicked into me, and I was like, why would I want to go there? You know what I mean? I was like, I'm not going there. Screw that. You know, it was hot. I was like, I'm not dealing with that. Once I saw how they were funneling people downtown, I was like, I'm not even dealing with that. So I wound up not going. We had spoke about it on the prior episode, myself, Eric, Moreland, and we talked about, is it going to be a shit show on the parade route? And I said that I didn't think it would be a shit show on the parade route. And boy, was I mistaken again. You know, I think, you know, a lot of people are talking about the posture. We put out, like I said, the default position for this new style of policing, and I'm not just going to put it on the Tish, because it is her, because she's currently in charge and Heavy is the head. But this is the posture that's been since late de Blasio into Adams, now with Mamdani. The posture is, we're just going to flood the zone. I will say, under de Blasio and under Adams, the deployment strategies, I think, were much more competent, even though their deployment strategy was flooding the zone. It worked. It would displace crime. It would keep those areas free of crime. I think what I'm seeing now, currently under Tish, under Mamdani, that's no longer the case, because I don't think that the deployment strategies are proper. I think they're incompetent. We saw that in 5 nights of 5 final games, and we saw it again at the parade. You know, we asked the question, will the NYPD fail again? That was our last episode. And I think the answer is simple, yes. And I'll tell you right now, I got message after message yesterday. We failed. You know, and don't come here. It's a disaster. No one knows what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. And this is on the parade route, dude. 10,000 cops, supposedly 10,000 cops, you know, and we have recruits out there. We have recruits in the academy out there in Grays to add to that 10,000. And how does this happen? How does this happen with 10,000 cops? I'll tell you how this happens. Your deployment strategy isn't proper. The way that they funneled everybody into this 1 mile radius on the parade route, they kept that parade route really short. They set up, and the way they penned everybody in and put those pens together, and their plans for egress, their plans to enter and their plans for egress was not large enough. And they created the conditions that were ripe for a riot and for people to lose their life. I mean, what I witnessed yesterday, I was like, I will never, ever sit there and think that, oh, I can't be the police commissioner, or I can't be the mayor, or I can't be this ever again in my life, because these people should not be in any of these positions, because they clearly have no idea what they're doing. And, you know, I said something a while back. I said, you know, well, we're intelligent guys. If you put us out there to plan these events, we would fail miserably. I take that back. You could put us together and give us about 4 hours to come up with a plan for this parade, and it would have been a much better job than what you're seeing here. And again, I think it all falls back onto, I'm going to say it again, I think Strategic Initiatives is calling the shots. I think we have civilians who have no operational or even administrative experience calling the shots at this, and all they know is flood the area, and they can't see the big picture. And I think it's clear as day. I mean, this is an absolute disgrace, in my opinion. I'm glad there weren't a lot of issues. There were some issues. I'm glad that for the most part, New Yorkers and people that came, the tourists that came, and the people that celebrated, I'm glad for the most part it was okay, but it was only okay by the grace of God.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of people climbing on buildings too, by the way. And you know, there were a couple injuries there too. I talked about the gentleman who had like a slashing on his face extending to his neck, and he was bleeding. We're not going to show you that, obviously, because it's YouTube, you know. But you know, somebody online commented on a post I made, and they brought up a good point about why this wasn't held on Fifth Avenue. I know Canyon of Heroes tends to be where the Canyon of Heroes. You go back, John. You see that video there? Oh wait. Yeah, I'm sorry guys if you're hearing that. I got an ambulance that just drove by. Right,
New
you
York
see
sound,
that video?
bro. Don't worry about it. That's the. I've been hearing it. I'm getting it's coming back into my bloodstream. It gives me a layer of calm hearing all the sirens every day now. I was like, I couldn't tell what I was missing in Florida, and I think that's what it was: is the constant sounds of sirens.
Yeah, it's the New York authenticity day, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So you see that video, guys? This is the video we were talking about before, right? How like it's not just the perps doing dumb shit at that parade. It's like for some reason, like regular people too were losing their minds, and they just taking the event to, like, I don't know if it's that euphoria, you know, that social euphoria of being in a crowd of everyone happy, that they feel, oh, you know what, I'm gonna climb up on that now. You know, he just would that guy do that normally? I bet he wouldn't. You know,
He clearly can't do a pull up. I don't know why he
no,
thought he was going to do like a muscle up and body himself
it's just
up.
that
Just out of
euphoria,
nowhere.
you know. It's just that euphoria. You feel, oh, everyone's so happy here. I can do it. You know, crazy. But yeah, again, somebody brought up a point to me that why wasn't the parade held on Fifth Avenue, and I was thinking about it for a while. You know, I mean, I know Canyon of Heroes is used for, like, you know, championship parades, you know, but in this case, they were expecting upwards of 4 or 5 million people. You know, I think the number that showed up on last week was on Saturday was 3.5. Oh man, was 3.5 million people, right? So if you're expecting, Jesus, but what is wrong with people, man?
Dude, on top of a car, she takes her sneakers and socks off, and this dude's sucking on her toes.
What is
I
wrong
mean,
with people,
look,
man?
they're hanging from everywhere, bro. Like
Jesus.
this is on the parade route, dude. It's debauchery, bro.
Yeah.
Like how people came out alive, I'll never understand. Like it's a miracle, like from God. Like for those of you that don't believe in God, I mean, look at yesterday. It's a perfect example of it, of how that God loves you, and he knows how stupid we all are, and he doesn't want he tries his best.
Yeah, Jesus, man, get a number, dude. Yeah, but listen, you know, if the job was expecting upwards of like 4 or 5 million people, you know, why squeeze them all into Lower Manhattan, right? And why squeeze them into Lower Manhattan when you know that, you know, you're making it also difficult for emergency services to get to them if something, God forbid, something happened to them? Why not space them out more in an area like Fifth Avenue? Yeah. And I think the reason why they did that is because, again, the lack of personnel, and they wanted to control the crowd by corralling them into a tight area, yeah, instead of having them spread out more onto some place like Fifth Avenue, like say this is the Macy's Day Parade route, you know, I don't know the actual route of the Puerto Rican Day Parade, but that's also held in this vicinity. You know, so if you're expecting upwards of 5 million people, why wouldn't you hold it up here? And I think the answer is because there's not enough police personnel to spread them out and be able to monitor the activity on the crowd's activities. I mean, you didn't even have enough cops to monitor their activities in Lower Manhattan. This is the Knicks parade route in Lower Manhattan, right? So how would they have been able to have enough personnel to monitor them up here? But I think there was a lot of unhappiness with the structure of the parade as well, like the barriers that were put up. A lot of people, I saw footage of a lot of people being trapped in the subways as well, because at a certain point the subway service was cut off as well. So if you happen to be getting off the subway on the last train and you were in a bottleneck to get to the entrance, and then at a certain point they blocked off the exit route, so you're basically trapped in the subway with shoulder to shoulder people. God forbid somebody had an emergency incident there, how would EMS have been able to get to them in time? But keep in mind also that vehicular traffic was also blocked off in this area entirely. So again, I think the job also, in its attempt to prevent people from going crazy, the job also created a shit show, where that I think left a lot of people feeling angry and unhappy about the entire situation, especially since some people came there at like 5 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning just to get a good spot. But even that early, they were blocked off and they weren't allowed to go further.
Yeah, I think that what they did is, I think that when strategic initiatives, they were like, we don't know what to do. We don't have enough manpower. And I'm going to take it back, because I think that they do have enough manpower. I don't even think they needed 10,000 cops for this detail. I just don't. I don't. You look at Unger, it's about 4,000. You look at these other parades that occur throughout the city, it's not that level. So I think that they could have spread it out properly. I just think they don't know what they're doing. If they would have had more entrance points, if they would have had, I think they could have did it. And I think so. What happened? I think they were over in strategic initiatives and in DCPI, and they watched 300, and they were like, "We're gonna make this like the Battle of Thermopylae, where we funnel their numbers into the hot gates, and their numbers count for nothing." And I think that's where they're getting their strategy from, is the movie 300, not thinking that these aren't. These aren't you're not war, actually. These are just people. These are just revelers. So you don't want to trap them in subway stations. You don't want to trap them and funnel them into city blocks, because that's when, I know myself, dude. Like, and I think I spoke to you about this yesterday. Like, I'm a pretty rational person. I think I'm not quick to anger. But if you put me in a situation where I'm getting pushed upon and I can't move and I'm frustrated and I want to get out of a spot and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I can't see, I might act a little different than I normally act. You know what I mean? I might be a little bit more physical with people, a lot nastier with people. And like I said, I think like doing what they did, I think it created like the perfect conditions for a riot. Now, I'm not going to say that there was flat out riot. There were parts of this that were horrific. I think a lot of it was okay, but there was a lot of stuff that happened in there. And I guarantee you the majority of people that attended that event will probably never attend another parade like that ever again. And that's just based upon everyone I know. Like, I'll never go to something like that ever again. Nowhere to pee, nowhere to shit. Nobody wants you in anywhere. And I can't blame them, because it's not like you. It's that it's just too many people to deal with in too little of an area. They just didn't spread it out far enough. And I think that was the plan. I think that strategic initiatives, DCPI, I think they watched 300 and they tried to turn New York City into the hot gates, and they thought it was the Battle of Thermopylae. And, I'm just going to say those 300 Spartans did a lot better than those 10,000. You guys look like the Persians.
Yeah. So this is Fulton Street also. It was packed and they weren't allowing you to leave. Yeah. Now, if you're claustrophobic or
I would have freaked out there, bro.
Yeah.
I would have freaked out.
Yeah. I agree with you, John. I guarantee you that there are people there who are like, this has been a shit show, man. I'm never coming back to another celebration like this. This is just a mess, Yeah. So I think it was I think it's exactly the NYPD trying to funnel people in and keep them manageable again, because I think they don't have enough cops, But again, this is why I said like they should have called in like for additional help from the state, I mean,
Well, but again, I think I said it. I did
Mhm.
say it. I know I said it. I said like the stupidest thing that they do is they try to let everyone in every area, and you can't do that. You can't just funnel bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies. Like, I know you want everyone to have fun, but that's why these parade routes are long. It's so that you could get in, but you have a manageable amount of people. That is not a manageable amount of people on one block. That is a very, very dangerous spot right there. Somebody does have a panic attack in the middle. Somebody does have a diabetic attack. They have a heart attack. They have an asthma attack. They're dead. You're not getting to them. A fight breaks out in between there. People are getting trampled. A gun goes off, a knife, someone gets stabbed. People are getting trampled. And I mean, and look what they were doing. They're on top of the barriers. They're on top of buildings. They're on top of the light poles. They're on top of cranes. I mean, this is not a very safe scenario, and this is what I was talking about is like, how do you keep your children safe in that scenario? They're really not. You're just trusting the crowd. You're just trusting the crowd. And honestly, you show me this, I'm like, I'm not going there. I'll never go there. That's not enjoyable to me. I don't need to see the players that much. I could click on my TV. I don't care. And the other thing I saw, which I was really annoyed about, I'm not going to lie. And I don't even care if I ever was a supervisor or not. I've interacted with everybody in the New York City Police Department, very high level politicians, presidents, movie stars, extremely rich people, rappers, fighters. I never fanboy out on any of them. None of them. I see cops with their phones out. Instead of doing their job, they're trying to talk to the players. They're trying to talk to the coaches. They're videoing on their phones. Like, where are the supervisors? Like, dude, I'm not a stickler for a lot of shit. I'm not. Like, I just do your job and we'll be all right. I don't care. Even if you came to work a little scruffy that day, you got white socks on, maybe a uniform, maybe you should have washed your uniform about 3 weeks ago. I don't care. If you're doing your job, I overlook a lot of shit. Like, I do. Like, I don't care. If the guy's working, he's working. The guy or girl working, I ain't bothering them. I don't care. Just do your job. We're good. You're good with me. You know what I mean? That shit, I'm like, that should be, people should get a talking to right ahead of time. Like, you're not going to be a fan. You're not a fan here today. You're facing the crowd. You're not fanboying out or fangirling out. You are a member of the New York City Police Department. Like, do not let me see you guys on your phones taking pictures and doing all. And I saw it happening right in front of chiefs, cops, detectives, with sergeants. I'm like, what are you doing?
There was white shirts. There was
white shirts doing it too.
Phone taking. I'm like, what? I'm like, man, this is not your dad's NYPD, or your older brother's NYPD,
And they say Tish is harsh, but I think she's just harsh on the wrong things, dude. Like, like, to me, to me, people are gonna see these. Like, you did what? You took you're a lieutenant and you took your phone out. You're an inspector and you took your phone out.
Yeah.
What kind of, and you let your guys take their phones out and turn their backs to the crowd and start filming the players like they're there observing the parade? Like, to me, when I was watching that, dude, I was like, this is everything that's wrong with the New York City Police Department today. There's no clear leadership. There's no clear mission. And there's not strong supervision. Because if you had strong supervision, that does not happen. That does not happen. It doesn't. It's ridiculous, dude. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, and then we're gonna sit there and wonder why things look the way they look. It's because of that. Eric says it all the time. It falls back to the leadership. It goes on to the leadership, and it absolutely does. It absolutely falls on the leadership. So I'm sitting there. In my opinion, and we'll go through more of this. I got a lot more videos to go through before we get to the viral incident with the cop. But in my opinion, when we asked, will the NYPD fail again? I think the answer is clear as day. Yeah, they failed. Thankfully, it wasn't a catastrophic failure, but but overall, it was a systemic failure, without a doubt. So, all right, people, it's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. The 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primary election outcomes and the biggest political storylines as they happen. Will James Fishback be the Florida Republican governor nominee? Right now, Fishback is currently trading at 5%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $1,415.25 if he wins the Republican nomination. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app, use code FINEST to get $20 when you trade 20. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Yeah, John. I was trying to find that video of the white shirts, but I wish I had saved. Twitter kind of changed the way their system works when you can't even view your own likes anymore, which is like, man, I can't tell you. I saw so much good stuff from that parade that I should have bookmarked it instead of liking it. I liked it, and then I went back later. I'm like, I can't even view my likes now. I know when they got that change, but yeah, I saw I think it's one thing to have cops do that. I'm not okaying it. I think we need to be more professional, and don't get me wrong. If you happen to be on a foot post, there's nothing going around, and then Scottie Pippen happens to walk by you. I think it's fine. Say what's up to Scottie. Maybe have him scratch your memo book if you have one of those. I know we don't use the paper memo books anymore. I'm giving you an example because that's what I did back in, I think it's Obama's last visit. I was at the hotel, and then Scottie Pippen walked out, and I was like, oh, shit, Scottie Pippen. I had him scratch my memo book. But, I think there's a certain point where that goes too far and you look very unprofessional, and I think that point is the point where you're pulling out your cell phone and you're videoing him like if you're a pedestrian on the street, I think, and I think it's especially bad when you're a white shirt. You're not even a sergeant, but you're a white shirt. Okay, you're two ranks up, and you're still acting like you're a rookie or a rookie who just saw his as a celebrity. I think I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I don't expect that behavior from people wearing a white shirt. But yeah, I think it's again one of those consequences of the job being so young now. You're seeing lieutenants who look like they just got out of high school now, John. When we got on the job, like all the lieutenants were like old dudes.
Little crusty. They were crusty.
Yeah. Crusty old dudes. You figured. Now you're looking at lieutenants. I'm like, damn, that guy just looks like he got out of junior high school. Some of them look really, really young, and I think that's because they're taking the test so quickly and getting up there so quickly, and it's part of the it's a consequence of the job being so young now. And I think being so young, they're still a little bit immature, and unfortunately, that's what you're seeing now. But I couldn't believe it. I still got to find a video because I kept looking to see if their patches said like corrections on it, or you know, maybe there was some maybe sheriffs or something, you know. But I couldn't believe it. You know, they looked like NYPD. The patches didn't look like sheriff, you know. So
Yeah, first off, I'm gonna say right now, anybody that gets a autograph from Scottie Pippen, that's like a BCD. You know, that's a bad
BCD?
CD. Yeah, that's not even a CCD. That's like the real bad with 10 days. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, you want to get an autograph from a Knicks fan. I mean, it's just you know, it's unprofessional. You want to, you know, from a Knicks player, but like from Scottie Pippen.
Nah, come on, John. We had a love-hate relationship with Bulls in the 90s, you know? Bulls.
I never had that love-hate relationship.
No, a lot of heartbreak.
I never had that love-hate relationship until Jordan retired. And I'm talking about the second time, because when Pippen was running that team, and I got an opportunity to go a lot of those games. One of my cousin's husbands worked down on Wall Street, so he got tickets and he used to bring me. And the years that Jordan went out, we went up against, I don't know if it was the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I can't remember, but the Garden was rocking, and Pippen was leading the team at that point. And we were the whole time, F Scotty, like the whole place was rocking, bro. And they still gave us a good fight. But I you know, now that all that's past us, I'm okay with it. You know.
Yeah, no, I was.
But it's still unacceptable for NYPD cop to get an autograph. That's a mortal sin, honestly. That might even be charges, bro. I'm not even, like that.
well, you know, this was back when in 2008 the Knicks were like a crap show, you know.
Yeah. No, but Scotty, great player, you know, great player.
Yeah. A lot of childhood memories watching those Bulls, for good or bad, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. This one was wild. This one I couldn't stop laughing. So they're up on a scaffolding. Dude ODs on the scaffolding, or they're on like some structure. Girl comes over, she knock hands him. Right, cops are there. Cops don't even get to him. There's cops just standing there. And I'm not saying that they should. I'm not saying that they should rush up there and start giving mouth to mouth or anything, but see what the hell's going on. Anyway, this girl climbs up there, gives this dude Narcan, brings him back, and he instantly just tries to make out with her. Like instantly. Like I was like, this dude was just dead. Look, he's trying to get the look. Look, he's still going. That's four times. 4 times. And she was like, stop. You know, I'm assuming that she's in the medical field. I'm assuming, you know, the other dude had gloves on him. That was, you know, so they get the save there, you know, they get the save, but I'm sure Tish and LePetrio put the save down in front of NYPD cop. One saved.
Yeah, there's another view of that, by the way. Okay.
I like this view better.
Yeah, there's a close-up view of him. He was really like ODing over there, you know?
No, yeah, he OD'd, yeah.
But I just think they should have held this at Fifth Avenue, you know? I think the entire thing again leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. And imagine if you're a tourist now, right? Like you said, can you actually bring a young child to this? I mean, no, you can't, you know? So I just think that the entire thing was like a shit show.
Yeah, here it is again. Here's the other angle of it. Hold on, I'll bring it up. But look, he's up there. First of all, why is he up there, right? Like, then he ODs on the structure, and they just leave him there, dude. And it's like, and then people are realizing it, like, oh, I think that dude's in trouble up there, you know. And then that's when they go up there. But if you look, like, the cops are looking on, dude, and there's bosses there. And I'm like, what happened? Like, when did this happen where we're just like nothing matters. When did we became like Eric Adams? He's like, I'm just the mayor. You know, the NYPD is like, yeah, no, we're just cops. There's nothing we could do here. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do, I mean, all of it, I think, has to do with the leadership. But the other end of it, I think that rank and file cops, like, I think a lot of times they made good decisions under bad leadership, and they're successful in spite of their leadership. But I don't think that's the case anymore, dude. I think that they're so demoralized and so down that they're just sick of it, dude. I think they're just completely sick of it.
Well, you think they're just going through the motions, maybe?
Yeah, I think they're just like whatever. They're like paid observers, dude. They're just like, yeah, I don't know. What do you want me to do? You know, oh, the guy's dead up there. Oh, the guy's up on that structure. Oh, he just passed out. Okay, yeah, all right. What am I supposed to do? I can't do anything. Nothing I could do.
Yeah. Did you see that the cameraman? I think it's hilarious, the camera movement. When you're watching these videos, guys, look at the cameraman. It's like the cameraman is you yourself watching it, and then you see the cops. The cameraman is always panning to the cops just standing by there and turning back at the incident, as though he himself is like, hey, shouldn't you be doing something over there?
Yeah, and I think, honestly, I think that's a fair argument, right? Like, what's happening here, dude? Like, why are these people up on all these spots still? You know,
it's like the cameraman is surprised this is happening. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So I thought, you know, there was a lot of stuff about Mondani. I think maybe we should go to his speech, because he was getting a lot of praise and applause for his speech. I thought it was good, but like I said, I think that this, like, theatric wise, I think they're real good at it. The socialists, I think that they're great. I think, like I said, I think this kid runs a modern campaign. I think when it comes to media, when it comes to content generation, when it comes to speech writing, delivery, I think he's excellent. When it comes to actual substance and governance, he's abysmal. I think Eric Adams might have been better than him. You know, so
well, I don't.
Was that?
Well, I'm gonna say I don't think Eric Adams is that much different. You know, they're both showmen. You know,
well, it's true. They're both showmen, 100%. But again, I just don't believe that, like, they're really Knicks fans and they really care about New York City the way that they portray themselves. I think it's all a serious front. And I think the 33 up in the rafters really proved that, where they put Jones as number 33 up in the rafter and not realizing that that's Patrick Ewing's number, and that Jones is number 1, and that it shouldn't be in the rafter because number 33 is hung up in the rafters. Patrick Ewing, one of the greatest Knicks of all time. I'm like, you know, I maybe the mayor didn't look up, maybe, but like his staff didn't know. Everybody's got all, and look, I think the Alicia Keys performance was great. I think the way they put this one area together was great. The way that the showmanship they had during this time was great. But I just think they're so full of shit. I just think when it comes to governance and substance, they're horrible. But I watched the speech. I enjoyed it. And I honestly, a lot of people are beating up Dolan, and we'll bring that in too. But I got no problem with what Dolan said. I got no problem with people expressing themselves. You know what I mean? Why do you got to go up there and be a phony and kiss somebody's ass that you're not fond of? I don't think so. You know, especially, we say it all the time. You know, like, Dolan's in a position where he could do that. He's a billionaire. He doesn't want anything from Mondani. He doesn't need anything from Mondani. And he called out a lot of the garbage. He said a lot of the stuff, like, they don't know what they're doing. And honestly, I agree with his assessment. I don't agree with his assessment about a lot of things, but I agree with his assessment totally. They do not know what they're doing. The last 5 games in this parade absolutely showed it. You got anything before we go to the Mondani speech?
No, but just to give you guys a background, this is Dylan Jones. He wears number 1 on the Knicks, right? This is Knick legend Patrick Ewing. He wears number 33. Whoever job it is at Times Square at the mayor's office. I'm sorry, to put up those numbers, was so clueless about it that they put up Dylan Jones' name under using Patrick Ewing's jersey number. Again, that's what John is talking about there. Clearly, they're not Knicks fans, you know. And you know, I saw a lot of politicians on there, and I wasn't a big fan of that, you know, of politicians hijacking that moment. I think most people there would rather not hear or see any politician, but here they were trying to use the moment to you know, benefit themselves, you know, to you know, get the spotlight on themselves.
Yeah, but we're not going to play it here. But if you didn't get a chance, I would definitely watch Alicia Keys' performance. And I'm not a fan of her totally, especially on her political takes. But I thought it was a really good performance that she did. I thought she was brilliant. She opened up with New York State of Mind and brought it into Empire State of Mind. You know, like, so it was really, really great. I thought it was really well done. You know, really good performer. You know, politically, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of. You know,
they couldn't get Billy Joel up there. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, I think they're showmen, dude, and they understand the vibe of the city, and there's this young vibe to it, and so they're gonna be with the hip crowd, you know what I mean, and more than
I guess.
You know, I think they nailed it with this, dude. They nailed it with this, but it doesn't show anything, in my opinion. Listen to Mondani's speech. And again, I think he's full of crap. I don't think this dude could dribble a basketball. And I think he just has a really, really, really good speechwriter. And his delivery is very good.
My fellow New Yorkers, for 53 long years, we have watched and we have waited. We have watched from nosebleeds and through gritted teeth, on televisions in the windows of electronic stores, and from projectors balanced on fire escapes. We have watched alone in our apartments with our heads in our hands, shoulder to shoulder at bars where the signal flickers, alongside friends and family who we wish more than anything could be here today, sharing this moment. For 53 long years, we have watched the Knicks and we have waited. We waited as the memory of Willis Reed winning the championship on one leg grew fainter and fainter. We waited as Clyde came up clutch again and again. As John Starks dunked on Jordan and Patrick Ewing dunked on the Pacers. As Bernard King scored 60. As Charles Oakley pulled every rebound within reach. As Spike got in Reggie Miller's face. As Allen Houston put up a shot against Miami that hung in the air for an eternity. As Larry Johnson gave us the 4-point play heard around New York. As Starbury traded threes with Kobe and then sold sneakers every kid could afford. As Nate Robinson stuffed Yao Ming. As the city came alive watching Linsanity. And as Melo lived every Brooklyn dreams when he came home and made MSG feel like the center of the universe once again. We waited without ever knowing if this day would come, and we waited because we knew deep down in our sick, suffering hearts that it would. New York City, this team has done it. The New York Knicks are NBA champions. We are here not just because of this team that will go down in New York City legend. I'm talking about guys like Ronaldo Balkman, Marty Collins, Raymond Felton, Marcus Camby, Kristaps Porzingis, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, and the whole Knicks tape era. I'm talking about guys like Tony Douglas, who I watched tie the single-game franchise record for threes from the stands in 2011. I'm talking about Amari, who got this whole city fired up when he joined. And I'm talking about Jared Jeffries and Lance Thomas and Langston Galloway. Players who gave everything every game, even when a 20-win season was all that was in sight. This championship belongs to them too, because championships aren't just built in one season. It belongs to Emmanuel Quickley, R.J. Barrett, Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle. And also to a coach who helped lay the groundwork, Tom Thibodeau. Thanks to each of these New Yorkers and too many others to name, New York City has just had two of the most magical months in as long as any of us can remember. Over these past weeks, as the Knicks kept winning, our city has come together as one. Neighbors invited neighbors over. Strangers high-fived one another in the street. Subway conductors sang their announcements and bus drivers danced behind the wheel. So often when this city comes together, it is because we are forced to, by a moment of tragedy or adversity. What a gift it is to be brought together by pure, unfiltered joy. For as long as we live, we will remember this feeling of a city together, a city alive, a city overcome by happiness. But let's not pretend that this was inevitable. If you will allow me, I want to travel back in time 8 days. Game 4, 9 minutes and 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Knicks are down 20. The analytics guys, the sports betting companies, the pundits who watch from far away, they do what they do. They run the numbers. They calculate the odds. They write the Knicks off. They give the Spurs a 99.6% chance of winning the game. A 99.6% chance of tying up the series 2-2, of reclaiming the momentum with the next game in San Antonio. A 99.6% chance of silencing the Garden, of another year of watching and waiting. But there is one thing that the pundits just don't get about this team, that they just don't get about this city. It is in that 0.4% that we go to work. It is in that 0.4% that Jalen Brunson, the same guy that so many said was too small, proves that not only is he good enough, he is the new standard for greatness. It is in that 0.4% that OG Anunoby watches the ball float from the top of the arc and start running toward the basket, fingers reaching towards the heavens. It is in that 0.4% that Karl Anthony Towns finds the strength to mourn his mother and still pull in rebound after rebound, make block after block. It is in that 0.4% that Jose Alvarado shows every kid growing up in public housing that a son of Brooklyn and Queens can win for every one of the 5 boroughs. It is in that 0.4% that Mitch breaks his finger before game 1 and says, go get the tape. It's in that 0.4% that Josh Hart gets rebounds that break teams, that Mikal Bridges proves he was worth every single draft pick, that Landry Shamet pulls up from downtown, that every one of these 18 players transforms the franchise, that Mike Brown keeps this team believing. Most of all, it's in that 0.4% that the Knicks do what New Yorkers have always done when we are told something is impossible. We find a way. We win. Standing here before what feels like the entire city, there is a Jalen Brunson quote I can't stop thinking about. I'm gonna tell you. You are allowed to think about the worst possible scenario, but you gotta go out there and do something about it. When Jalen Brunson took that pay cut, my friends, that was doing something about it. Time after time, we thought about the worst possible scenario. And time after time, the Knicks went out there and did something about it. The Knicks did not just win for New York City. They won like New York City. What is New York if not your back up against the wall? A dream that feels just out of reach. A rent payment you don't know how you'll ever make. What is New York if not 99.6% of the world stacked against you? And who are New Yorkers if not people who hear those odds and smile? who look at a 0.4% chance of success and ask, why are you giving me a head start? This is our city. This is our team. For 53 years, we watched. For 53 years, we waited. Now, we've won. One last time, New York, say it with me. Knicks in. Knicks in. Knicks in. So much.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad, but I still prefer Eric Adams' delivery. You know, I give Eric Adams credit on that. His delivery seemed more like he was doing it off the cuff. You know. And
but he was funnier guy. Like he's just a naturally more likable and funnier guy, Adams. He's not like Mondani's more like that businessman. You know, the guy that's gonna meet you and he's like, "Hey, Marlon, so Marlon," you know, and you kind of like him, but you're like, I don't know, he's a little sleazy. Where Adams will come up to you and you'll actually want to like him and not realizing he just stole your wallet. You know, because he is a naturally funny, charismatic guy. Where Mondani's, in my opinion, is more of like a polished actor.
He's more scripted, you know.
But but it comes off better, I think, to a lot more people.
I mean, I think most people would not have a problem with the stuff. A lot of the stuff Eric Adams says, if he had been a better mayor. I think I've always talked about this, how Eric Adams was a blown opportunity. Because by all means, Eric Adams seemed like a very likable guy. You know, he seemed like a guy you'd have fun if you went to dinner with this guy. You know, and
I guarantee you we'd laugh our ass off. Even though I don't like him, I guarantee you'd be laughing and smiling if you were hanging out with him right now. Even though he fired you, forced me out, I guarantee we would have a funny evening.
Yeah. I agree. A lot of the stupid stuff he said, it was stupid, but it was like, you know, it was off the cuff, and you didn't get a sense of. We all know he was BSing, but he was so good at BSing that it didn't seem like it was phony. And Mondani to me just seems a little too scripted here. I don't believe for a second that he knows the Knicks history like he was reciting it there, you know. Whereas if Eric Adams were to tell you it, I tend to believe it, you know. I think they're both showmen though, and I think these are the type of people you're getting to rule us now in government. You're getting people who aren't the actual people making policy. Okay, like I said before, I think Dean Fullahan is doing most of the hard work behind scenes. I think Mondani is just the young face, the young energetic face of City Hall. You know, and to an extent, so was Eric Adams. Eric Adams, a lot of the women who were working behind the scenes, like Sheena Wright and Ingrid Martin and what's the other one? Taurus Springer. I think these were the people. There are a couple other names there that are even more in the background. I think these were the people making policy. Eric Adams was just even though I think Eric Adams knew a little bit more than Mamdani, because Eric Adams actually had a job before this and has spent like a long time in public administration, right? Including his career as a cop, right? I just think that, you know, these guys are the showmen or the showman in the face of a bigger production behind the scenes, you know.
Well, let me ask you. A lot of people they were all commenting on how the way his wife dressed to the event. Now, is it traditional of a first lady to not be dressed up? Whatever. I don't really have an issue with it, dude. You know, politics aside, I mean, they're a young couple. I really don't have an issue with the way she dressed. Like, what do you think about that?
Nah, I don't really care about that. I mean, they're young. Again, she's like, what? Is she even 30 yet?
I don't even think so, dude. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're young people, you know. I don't really see anything so outrageous about what she wore anyway.
I honestly wouldn't have cared if he dressed differently either. You know what I mean? Like without the jersey and the suit, like, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything to me. It's just a front, you know. So like I don't think this is highly inappropriate for her to dress this way. I just don't. I think she was making like a fashion statement, showing we're the new hip. This is the new politics of New York City. We're the new blood. You know, I think there was a statement made here more than anything, and I don't have an issue with it. But I know a lot of people do. Like, this is trash. This is how a man with white dresses. I was like, come on, man, give it a break.
A lot of older people would, but I would have a problem if Mamdani dressed a certain way, you know, because I expect the mayor to be different. I mean, maybe if you're the mayor of a small town, you can get away with it, but I do expect the mayor of NYC to dress appropriately, you know, business-like, you know. I have a problem when some of the attire that Kaz used to wear, you know. If it may be okay in a small town, but it's like you're in New York City, you know, and you're expected to dress a certain way. Like if you're in a squad, you work in a squad, you're expected to look a certain way, you know. If when I first got to Leeds, I went out on an interview. The interview was BS, so that's why I was like, I was gonna go in street clothes just to get the interview done, just to get it done. It was a crazy lady, and you know, I had to do it to get the 5 in the system. And my lieutenant, shout out to TL, who he knows who he is out there, right? He was like, "You're going out like that," and yeah, I looked at myself and I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I should probably." And after then, I started dressing more like business casual, you know, but in a way that if I needed to up my attire, I could easily throw on a jacket or whatnot, right? But the point I'm making here is this is New York City, okay? We're not a small town, so you need to dress a certain way, especially if you're the mayor. You gotta look businessman, because we're a big city. We're a big $1 billion city, you know, and you're in a grand scale. You're on a grand stage when you're in New York City. So I think you're expected. It should be expected that you look a certain way, you know.
And this is another thing people were commenting on. I got no issue with it. I thought it was funny. It is what it is. I thought it was cool. I thought this is a great photo. I thought this is an iconic photo, actually, from that day. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of other iconic photos and videos from that day, and I think it's going to be more with the girl with her ass out hanging off from the stop sign than this. But I actually like this photo a lot, you know. I don't know. I just thought it was a good moment. It was a fun moment, you know. What about the other thing people are going nuts about? Is it Inspector Yee? I can't remember the guy's name. Well, Inspector G. That's his name. Look at this one. This is funny as hell. So Tyler Kolek, he's like the backup point guard, but he's a real good player. You know, so he's coming through the crowd. He gets off the float. He's hyping the crowd up. He's going. And look at Inspector G. He comes running over. Boom! Where you going? Knicks security's got to come over. Like, no. He's a player. Look.
Yeah.
And you know, people are making a big deal of it. And I'm like, dude, cops don't even know who their own commissioners are.
True.
Half the time. And I think he did a great job. So shout out to the inspector. You know, I don't think it was anything more. I could have easily made that mistake. Anybody could have made that mistake, dude. You're doing your job. It shows they're on point, shows they're watching. Those mistakes happen a lot. These things are when especially like in a dynamic crowd. You know, I had a friend of mine when Miller was in charge of counterterrorism. When he was in charge, they racially profiled. When Miller was in charge of counterterrorism, I forget the detail. I think it was like a POTUS detail, like the president was in town, and he was deputy commissioner of counterterrorism intelligence. And my friend's a sergeant on the scene, and Miller comes walking up, and he's like, "You can't go here." And Miller's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" He's like, "You can't go here. Like, you can't come here. Sorry, sir. You got to go around, whatever." He's like, the guy's like, "You don't know who I am?" He's like, "I have no idea who you are." He's like, "Well, I'm a commissioner in the NYPD. I'm the deputy commissioner." And he goes, "All right, let me see your ID." And he shows him his ID. He goes, "Oh, all right. Sorry about that." So I
He
mean,
he
I
didn't
think we're
send him to the
notorious for
Staten
that,
Island?
but it's just the dynamic of the situation. I don't think, you know, shout out to Inspector G. You know.
Yeah. But you see how the cops were like, yeah, whatever. And it's the white shirt that has to take the lead now.
You know, a great point, dude. Great point. Yeah, that is true. But to be fair, they might have known who Tyler Kolek is.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah,
Good
you know,
point. I
but
didn't
they
think of
do
that.
look at him. If you notice it, they look at him, but one of them doesn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that
Good
was
thing.
funny.
Good thing that other guy came next to him. That he looked like he was part of the Knicks, and he came.
Yeah. But I think they got a good laugh after it. There's other videos of it where you see like the sergeant laughing after, like, I didn't know, you know, like shrugging his shoulders, like I didn't know who he was, you know.
Yeah.
And then
So, no, I was gonna say just before we move on to the next topic. Yeah, the Knicks. Yeah, they did exercise a lot of those '90s demons. John, you referenced that. You know, I always forget about the 1994 finals with the Knicks. You know, completely escaped me. About that. Yeah, but I just happened to stumble upon this picture again.
well, you know what I didn't notice is that Tyler Kolek was wearing a New York Knicks 1993 World Champ shirt. And I didn't notice it. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh wow. And then somebody pointed out, and I was like, 1993. I think they were the Eastern Conference final champs in 93. They didn't win the world championship, right? This is the first time in 53 years, right? And I like kind of went over my head, and I'm just like, that's weird. You know, I didn't think of it. And then somebody like put it out on social media. They're like, he's trolling Kathy Hochul. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Because Hochul said at one point, he was saying something about Trump, like, why is he going to MSG? Why is he going to the Knicks game? You know, he probably doesn't even know they won the championship in 1993. And yet,
and I wonder where he got that from.
World Champs 1993 shirt.
Yeah.
So, like, they think he was trolling Hochul.
Yeah.
What'd you think about Hochul and Mondani on the float with Towns, Anobi, and Brunson? I thought, like, what are you up there for? Like, get your own float.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It left a bad taste to me, you know, because I don't want to see stupid politics. Like, you watch the Knicks' faces when these politicians are talking. I get the sense. You look at it. I saw you guys in the chat commenting about Dolan, and I agree too. Dolan looked like he, you know, like he wanted to tell this guy shut up already himself, you know. And
I got that clip.
Were completely bored too. Like, what? Yeah. Like, hurry up and get off the stage, you know. And I felt the same way, you know, like what's Hochul and Mamdani trying to insert themselves in this, you know. I hate when politicians try to hijack a moment where, you know, a sports moment, you know, especially since a lot of us watch sports to get away from that bullshit, you know. And that's why a lot of us have problems when BLM infiltrated the NBA, and I still can't get into the NFL, you know, because of all that woke crap still going on. You know, it's like you watch sports to get away from all that stuff. You know, I don't want that stuff thrown in my face when I'm trying to enjoy a sport or a celebration related to a sport. You know, so I just wish they had told them to go on another bus, not on the bus with the actual players on it. You know, not try to get in there with the make it seem like a political stunt, you know?
Yep. I agree totally, dude.
Yeah.
I agree totally. I just got a text saying that there was a cop shot in the 7-9 in the leg. Perp was barricaded. I don't know if anybody got on anything on that. So, you know, prayers to the officer. If anybody hears anything, that's just what I heard. Not really. I don't really have much info on it.
Yeah, it's confirmed by the Post.
Okay.
Yeah. Shot on the leg. Responding to shots fired in Bed-Stuy.
Responding to shots fired?
Yeah. Officers responded to a report of shots fired. People ran out of the house and additional shots were fired. Officers suffered a gunshot wound. Yeah, I know that area too. Kosciuszko Street. Yeah. Yeah, that's all that the Post has right now. So it's no further details right now.
Yeah, if anybody gets any of the condition of the cop, let us know, you know, or the perp, or if the barricade comes to an end, you know.
Yeah. just dropped like 4 minutes ago. So it's
Perps in custody, supposedly.
Yeah.
All right. Other thing that I thought, it's real weird, bro. OC Che, Councilman OC Che, Mondani, they were getting rid of SRG, and yet again they were deployed at this parade. And OC Che has that act that he's trying to pass to the Curb Act. And this is one of the things he wants done. Not only does he want SRG not to respond, he doesn't want the NYPD to be able to use bikes for crowd control. And you see how they do it, like how they're using the bike. They're using the bike to clear the intersection to keep it free. And so they basically use them as like movable barriers. And so OC Che thinks that this is a brutal tactic from a rogue unit. But it's funny. Here's your boy Mondani deploying all the tactics that work when it comes time to have to be the police, And so I thought this again just highlights how inept they are at actual governance. Like, they're just not good when it comes to public safety. His public safety messaging is, in my opinion, is in the toilet. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And even Tish, like, trying to cozy up with him makes zero sense to me at this point. It really does. It makes zero sense. You see them deploying SRG consistently now because they're effective. They're the most effective when it comes to crowd control and moving crowds.
Yeah. And he's gonna deploy them more in the future too, because like I said, he doesn't want to be a one-term mayor. And if you allow that chaos to happen, like I said, I've said before, there's already a sustained effort to paint Mamdani in a certain way. And if he allows these riots to get out of hand, right? He's definitely going to be a one-term mayor, okay? Because the opposition will use that against him. So whether he likes the SRG or not, they're very useful to giving him a second term by preventing chaos from erupting. So
see, look, and this is what happens when you don't. Boom, barriers go over. Look at this. I mean, the person stopped filming this, but if you look how wild this is, I'm going to slow this down because it's just a short clip. But if you look how wild this is, you see this person right here in the red down there. The cop's trying to help him. He's being squashed. He's suffocating. And it's everyone. You see them pushing off the barriers, and now people are just pushing through, and they're pushing rows 10, 15 rows back. They're pushing those people. So the initial like 3 or 4 rows that the cops have access to, they're not even doing anything wrong. They're just being shoved forward. And this is how people die. This is how people get trampled. This is how people get crushed. So really, really sad to watch that happen, and it just shows like why you don't funnel that amount of people into a little area. I mean, I've never seen this where this has happened to this level. And there was at one point on the radio, I think it was McCarthy comes over and he says, I want to see every cop with their hand on a barrier. So they were already like, their plan sucked. They knew it. And instead of trying to like, all right, let's move some of the crowds, like let's open up other pens other way, like let's extend this out a little bit. They had no room to play with anything. And what they did was he just wanted, all right, just every cop put your hand on a barrier. Like that's going to help anything.
Yeah.
So so the cops were pissed, dude, honestly. Like a lot of them were pissed. They were like, this is like, they have no idea what they're doing, dude. I was like, yeah, keep your hand on the barrier. When they knock it over, break your wrist and get 3/4 like everybody else does. It is what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing that. I'm sorry. I'm not doing any of that. What you're gonna have 5 cops hold back a crowd of 100 and change people over there? Come on now, come on. You're not getting paid for that. That is so silly. That speaks of how like how much of a terrible tactical plan it was to rope these large crowds into these pens. You know, I just think, again, going back to what we said earlier, I think this should have been held in a wider area like Fifth Avenue. You know, just to be able to accommodate, such a large crowd of people.
See, like this guy, I don't know if he was
Safely.
having a panic attack, if he had an asthma attack,
Or
I
it
mean,
could have been heat stroke too.
heat stroke, because all that, because whatever. If it's it was
Yeah.
pretty hot yesterday. It was definitely humid, and then
Yeah.
you're trapped in that area. And the city's pretty humid anyway, with the building all in there. And now you have all this body heat on top of you. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just not a really healthy environment, especially for people with high blood pressure or have any existing issues. And again, they can't go to the bathroom. They couldn't bring in water bottles. It was like it really it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. They're just lucky somebody didn't like die over there of or have a heart attack. It's I just don't think that's a wise idea. Oh, and the bathroom thing you mentioned, that is a big issue in New York City, believe it or not. CHOC has this initiative to put up more bathrooms in the city. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, because apparently in this city, putting up a restroom, right, costs millions of dollars.
Yeah, like $20 million a bathroom, or like it's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous.
But the city does have a problem with that, and I think that's a problem for tourism. You come and you visit the city, and you got to go use a restroom. Where do you go? You got to go find one of these large corporate businesses that'll actually allow you to use it. Starbucks, a lot of Starbucks will not do that anymore unless you're buying a beverage. And even then, their facilities, they have like one bathroom, two bathrooms. They don't have enough to accommodate that too, Modern Samurai. A lot of them are out of order too. I think that's a major issue in the city, and I don't understand why it's taken so long for the city to acknowledge it and actually do something about it.
Because they're incompetent, dude.
Yeah.
They're incompetent. Like you can't bring the cost of those bathrooms down. You can't find firms that are willing to bid and actually give you nominal prices where they're still going to make money. They're still going to make a lot of money, and you're going to get functioning bathrooms in the city that work and that'll last a long time. Like it's not hard, dude. Like it is absolutely not hard. The only thing that's hard is we have weak, incompetent governance. We have governance that cares more about protecting the grift than they do about anything else. It's a complete joke. And the other thing is, like, the NYPD, they put out like this fancy video about the parade. They only show the good moments. And Bratton, of course, retweets it, and he says, "From the thousands of cops on post to the K9s, specialized counterterrorism units, and SRG on bikes, there is nothing that New York's finest can't handle. Ready for anything and prepared for everything. Cops count, police matter." And it's like, dude, how out of touch are you, bro? Like, do you not? Are you old enough where you just don't know what's happening anymore? What is that about? Or is it just a perception versus reality? And he's the, he's the Pied Piper calling it all in. It annoys me, dude.
Yeah. You know what I was also gonna say, John? It's not just New York City, by the way. I think the state has a problem with like rest stops. You ever drive towards like Montauk, right?
Yep.
Like how many count rest stops that you actually see there? Is there actually one?
You know what, dude? I haven't took that drive in a while, but I used to go out to the West Hampton Dunes often.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I know of one, dude.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and on the southern state, right? You would think that there'd be like rest stops out there, and there's nothing.
No,
I can't even think of one, dude.
No, this place is backwards, bro. Like I drive in
And
Florida.
every other state, like like when I drive down, like if I'm on 95, there's every state there's like 2 or 3 rest stops on along 95.
Absolutely. This state is backwards, bro. It's like these are things that actually make it make it pleasant for people to come and visit, and you're making it inhospitable for people to take long drives in the state. I don't see it whenever I drive through other states, especially like Florida. I just think it's completely backwards, and I don't know why it's taken this long for the state to do something about it. But we don't even have a welcome. When you cross over state lines, there's always like that like welcome center.
No, we got it on Staten Island though. Like if you come
There's
in, it says
actually one there?
welcome to New York. Forget about it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And it's
Or
actually like
maybe
a rest
am I
stop?
lying? And that's Brooklyn.
There's no one in Brooklyn, not that I know.
Welcome to Brooklyn. Forget about it.
Well, no, there's that sign, but I'm saying there's usually like a rest stop that says "Welcome to the state of so and so."
No, there's
and
no
maybe
rest
there might
stop.
be
No,
some
there's no rest
restaurants
stop in
there.
Staten Island. No, there's nothing. There's no place you could go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
I just there's a welcome to New York sign though. Like I just can't think of what it says.
yeah. No. Ron is saying that no. It's completely backwards, Ron. I just don't understand it. I drive through every state, and as soon as you cross over, there's a welcome center, and you could go get a coffee and go use the restroom, which is helpful if you've been driving for like 5 hours to get there.
Yeah, and then you could promote your business there too, tourist attractions, things like that.
Yeah. You get pamphlets,
flyers, a map.
Yeah. But we don't have that.
You can have a Finest Unfiltered corner.
Yeah, this state is backwards, bro. It's like completely backwards. But
yeah, it's crazy. This was Dolan's speech that everyone said's disrespectful, and I shout out to James Dolan. Like I'm a real big fan of Leon Rose and what he put together, and I'm happy that Dolan was like listened. So good for you for finally listening. But I got no issue with this. Like, what do you guys think about it, Marlon? What do you think? Let's listen to what Dolan's got to say.
Look, I don't need your vote. I don't need to quote to you, right? About what happened here, and because if you're real Knicks fans, you know it already.
I mean, he basically the people like, oh, that was a cheap shot at Zoran. Like, no, that was actually what he was saying. These people aren't Knicks fans. I don't need to quote you the bullshit. I don't need your vote. You already know all this. I think he was annoyed. I think he was clearly annoyed by the ceremony. And I think it wasn't a shot at it wasn't a cheap shot at Zoran Mamdani. It was a direct attack on him. Yeah. I got no issue with it. I don't know what you guys think about it. But I was like, good for you, bro.
No, he's right.
Why kiss
He's
their
right.
ass? Like, why kiss these politicians' asses? Like people revere them like they're gods. Like, no, they work for us. And guess what? You put up Patrick Ewing's jersey in the rafters and put it to Jones. Like, come on.
Yeah. Look, I've had my issues with Dolan, because again, the Knicks have been through like 20 plus years of crap until he did the wise thing and he took a back seat and let what's his name become president and Worldwide West to be the GM, which was a great move. And look how he was rewarded with it. And Knicks broke the curse, right? But he's right. He sees the BS too. And how much do you want to bet that he's unhappy with what happened at the Knicks celebrations?
Oh yeah, he was furious, dude. He said they have no idea what they're doing. He's like, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, because it looks bad on the Knicks. It looks. These people were rioting wearing Knicks jerseys, and it looks bad for the fan base. It looks bad for the Knicks, and when they start throwing eggs at the rival teams, it's just a bad look, man. And it's I don't think it's a good look on the brand either. But he sees through the BS. And we may have our issues with him, but it's guys like that bring in billions of dollars to the city, because there are a lot of businesses in the area of the Knicks that also depend upon these rich guys who go and buy a 10K ticket to go and have dinner after watching the Knicks game. I don't like that the tickets are so expensive either, but it's capitalism, and we still need the Knicks and these other businesses to have a healthy ecosystem in New York City and to bring in the money so they don't have to pilfer your pensions, So.
Yeah, I don't know, man. So then there was this other thing, and I think we got to get to it because we're running thin on time here. But So female cop, she gets into a verbal altercation. It looks like a bunch of female cops working together. They get into a verbal altercation with another group of females. She was getting dragged, like, right, all the usual suspects. You know, the one podcast that used to be on here that now is like an advertisement for a lawyer, and part of, I think he joined Cop Watch, I'm not really sure. You know, everybody's dragging her. She should be fired. This is how cops act. You know, everybody's perfect as a cop. I just love that, like, everyone could speak from this moral high ground, like, where we're all perfect. We're all expected to be perfect at all times. Look, I don't think what happens here is what a cop should do. I don't. But I also don't think I'd rather see this than watch cops getting abused. Honestly, I'd rather see this. And because I could work with this, I can't work with a guy that watches his partner getting beat up or rolling around with someone and doesn't put his hands on them. I can't really do anything with that person. Can't do anything with a guy that's going to allow himself and his partners to be abused or is not going to help someone. This, I could work with this. I could absolutely work with this because I think she just needs a little direction and a little training. And listen to what happens here. Listen to what transpires. Now, I don't know the whole lead up to it, but clearly you see the cop gets very angry, loses her cool, and you shouldn't do this as a cop ever. And again, I think this is just being young, being immature, being inexperienced, not having the proper guidance, leadership, and proper training. So with all that, with a strong supervisor, strong sergeant, strong team, I think this girl has the ability to be a great cop. But prior to it, you could hear what she says. Do not talk crazy to me. So you should imagine that what was being said was that people were physically threatening these cops prior to this. Now, like I said, there's a way to handle that, and you do that through enforcement. You have summonses, you have arrests, know the law, and you could basically put someone in handcuffs and arrest them or summons them any amount of time. But everyone's dragging this girl. She needs to be fired. Everybody pretends now that they were perfect police. So listen to this.
Stop talking crazy like that.
Like, what
Stop
happened?
talking crazy and get closer to me.
You gonna fuck who up?
What happened?
What happened?
All right.
I what?
Y'all gonna fuck who up?
Go ahead, she gonna catch a lawsuit. Thanks, so go ahead. She gonna catch a lawsuit. You gonna lose. Go ahead, you gonna lose your job. Okay, go ahead, you gonna lose your job. Go ahead. Go ahead, you gonna. Go ahead. So fuck me up. You're not like that. You're not like that.
Like, so what do you think, Marlon? Like, honestly, like, what are your thoughts about that? People are saying she should be fired. She's a hood rat. She's ghetto. This is DEI. I'm sitting there. I'm saying, I'll take her any day over Sal Greco. Oh, I mean, sorry.
Damn it, John. You just gave him 1K views on Monday again.
But I would. I'm not lying. You're going to stand there and watch your partner get your ass kicked and say you don't want to get a CCRB? Okay.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be fair to her, okay? But I'm still going to be a little critical of her. I do think she sounds a little ghetto here. And I think it's a little ghetto to be taking off your uniform and go, what are you in the park? You're about to square off with her? Come on now. Come on, you're a cop, okay? You got to be a little more professional and mature about this, okay? All right? And you got to be aware that this person's recording you and you're going to show up on social media and you know everybody's going to be critical of your behavior, and eventually this video is going to be land smack dab on LePetrie's office, his desk, or Tish's desk. And you don't want that to happen, and you don't want 1PP to make an example out of you. So you got to be smarter than that, right? But with that said, I hope the job doesn't go too hard on her. You know, if she's on probation, I hope the job does not fire her. Do not do that, guys. Okay, if I'm chief, I'd sooner fire you for being a coward than I would for you doing this. Okay, because I think the job has a bigger issue with cowards now than they do with cops who are ready to go and actually do their job and be a cop, right? I think the job has a problem with Gen Z cops who've been babied their whole lives, who've been a product of helicopter parents, and now they stand around and they wait for the boss to tell them what to do, and that really annoys me. Okay, and when it annoys me because those cops too are now becoming bosses, and now you're seeing incidents like we showed you a couple of days ago where everybody's standing around and the sergeant is actually giving the orders while the lieutenants are walking around like they don't know what to do, and that really bothers me because like I always say, if a crowd, if you're there in a crowd and the crowd is getting hostile and you're not doing anything about it, you're just waiting to get a bottle land on your head. Okay. So I think cowardice is a bigger problem for the job. But with that said, I hope the job, I hope maybe her CEO or somebody just has a sit down with her and tells her, listen, you got to be more professional here. And I like that you're willing to go toe to toe with these perps, but you got to be mindful of the camera and you got to be a little more professional. Like you said, she just needs a little more refinement, but I think she could be a good cop, and she certainly could be she may need to work out a little bit, but if she takes that attitude and becomes a crime cop, that may be a good career path, immediate career path for her.
Look, I again, like I said, is it a little ghetto? Yeah, it's a little street, bro. It is what it is. It's like the New York attitude. I mean, this is how it is when you grow up in New York. They tell you that they want kids from New York, they want kids from these neighborhoods, and then you're gonna pretend like these people don't get into fights and these people don't know how to defend themselves and protect themselves. Not everybody was Kaz Daughtry sitting in the house playing video games all day and then saying they were from Queens. Like, no, there were people that were out on the streets playing basketball, having fun, hanging out in the parks. And I think those kids are always the better cops. You know what I mean? I think they always are the better cops, but they're rough around the edges and they need a lot of guidance coming in because the academy doesn't really give you a lot of that. Like I said it originally, like I spoke about it a while ago about my gym instructor, just for whatever reason, he thought he knew me from somewhere. I'm a bald Italian guy from Staten Island. He thought, and I lived in Bensonhurst till I was 12, but I didn't grow up there. But he just thought I was from 18th Avenue in Bensonhurst. He just had it in his head, and he just thought I was somebody that I wasn't. And like I said, his gym instruction in front of the whole gym block was like, "You're a police officer now. You're not going to be like Macari over here and be out with the boys on 18th Avenue getting to fist fights on the street." And I don't think things like that are being said today because he was a Puerto Rican guy. What was it like? Was it like a shot, a cultural shot? Was he what do they call that? Profiling me and all that? Yeah, he was doing all that. Was he wrong? Was his statement correct? Yeah, his statement was absolutely correct. I mean, he was a little bit wrong about the area, but it was a good lesson overall. But even with that, it didn't click in my head, dude, because I still had a big ego when I was a kid. I grew up in Staten Island. My later years were in Staten Island, but I was always back and forth to Brooklyn. And you have a lot of interactions on the streets in New York. And, you have an ego, you're full of testosterone or whatever. Like you have something to prove, you're inexperienced, you're immature. And, I'm not going to lie, dude, I did a lot of dumb shit as a young cop. Like I got into it with people for absolutely no reason, chest bumping, not no reason. I mean, they provoked it, but I got myself hooked. And I just thankfully was with a lot of experienced older guys that really taught me a lot, dude. And I put out a video yesterday about it. And I said it like, there was one time I was working with an older cop. We were in 120 and this kid, he's about in his 20s, in shape. He comes walking in front of our RMP about as slow as you could possibly humanly walk. And he's sucking his teeth at me and staring at me. And then he says something and I snapped, dude. I jumped out of the car. I'm like, what the fuck are you looking at? I get in his face and then he realizes like, oh shit, this kid's like, I probably shouldn't have did that to this. And he backs down and he gets humble. And, the cop wasn't shy. So like once it was over, the kid backs down, he leaves. Nothing came of the incident, thankfully. And I get back in the car and the cop said to me like, who do you think was the bigger jerk off in that scenario? Him or you? And I didn't say anything to him. And I got to admit, I think I was annoyed at the time at the older cop. Like, I think initially I was annoyed. Like, fuck this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Fucking pussy. Like, that's probably what I was thinking in my head. And when I went home, I kept hearing his voice in my head saying, "Who was the bigger jerk off? Who was the bigger jerk off?" And I really sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, "Oh, it was me. It was 100% me. I was 100% me. Like what? Like I'm supposed to be a professional, and I'm in uniform, jumping out of a car, asking someone what the fuck they're looking at on an avenue where there's a million people out. Like 100%, it's me." And so that was a non-issue. And it didn't happen, and I learned my lesson, and I hope that this girl gets that same lesson and talking to, and I think that this was the similar non-issue. But again, if I'm going to take rookie mistakes, I'll take this rookie mistake any day over you being a complete coward.
Yeah. You lost me there, Hood Mayor. You know, Hood Mayor, I'm a little confused by that, Hood Mayor, you know, all I'm saying is that, right, she's rough around the edges, like John said, but, you know, she could be shaped into a better, more professional version of what you see in there, okay? And I think, again, we have a problem with cowardice now. We have a problem with docile cops who are, you know, wait around to be told what to do. And we don't need that. That's a bigger problem for us, you know? Because again, these are the people taking the tests and moving up the ranks quickly. So I think she should be molded into a better version of herself rather than being terminated. I also saw a comment there from Sal. Was it Sal Greco? Sal Stern, who's
There's
saying
two
that.
of them, dude. It's Sal Stern and
Jack
Greco. Yeah.
Man, I love those names. Yeah,
you guys are sick. Sorry. And
Yeah.
Sal Greco's 6'1".
But yeah, I'm gonna say that you know, the a lawyer that works with them, right, loves to call for the termination of every cop that does every little dumb stuff, you know. And I think if you do that, you're gonna be firing a lot of cops because unfortunately, the job has to work with what society gives them. And I think society at large, we're living in times that create weak men, you know, and weak women. So the job, it's unfortunately now the job's problem when those weak men and weak women jump into the academy, and you gotta work with what you got here. Okay, so you can't just go firing everybody for every little dumb stuff. Okay, there are things that you can change behavior, and there are things that are intolerable. And I think being a coward is intolerable. Okay, um, her doing that was dumb, but she should be talked to and she should be told to be more professional. And if she carries on, okay, that's crossing the line. But I hope again that the job doesn't rush to throw the book at her. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, unfortunately, if a CCRB arises out of it, they'll get her. You know what I mean? She'll be found guilty of it.
Yeah, probably.
You know?
Probably.
Yeah. But I get a lot of hate on this one. You know, it's hard. You know what I noticed about? You know what I noticed about like when I tell stories, like people that don't have any because they strayed away from all that and they just spent their days locking up women who had a glass of wine at dinner with their friends with zero niceties. Like they get really upset because they don't have those same experiences. They don't get to get into it a little bit and have those same thoughts. So I see all you guys out there, you know. Sarah Connors, I don't know who you are, Sarah, but she obviously is very well in tuned onto the 120. It was neither of them, but they're all great people. Matty Spoto, Fitzy, Di Maria, you know, Dennis Myra, excuse me, not Di Maria, Myra, but wasn't any of them. Actually wasn't any of them, but I'm not going to say their name for whatever reason, but it was I did get a lot of lessons from a lot of those guys, especially from Fitz. Spoto taught me some stuff too, and definitely Dennis. I think Dennis taught us a lot, but they taught us a lot about how to do proactive police work. I think the lessons that I learned about how to be a professional cop, and not saying that those guys weren't professional, I learned them from the patrol guys more than I learned from the proactive anti-crime guys. You know, they were teaching us how to be proactive cops. And I think when you're teaching cops in the proactive manner of policing. And I think, you know, Rob Lukash and Ron talk about that a lot, about that was the failure that they saw with Impact, is that like we were real proactive, but we weren't really professional police officers. You know, like that there was a lot of dumb things that we did and said, and our mannerisms, and we thought we knew it all. And I think that was a byproduct of hiring from inside New York City and then pushing us into right away into that proactive style of policing. So I'm going to always say, like, the lessons that really made me a professional police officer came from those guys who I thought were zero do-nothings and were lazy. And really, the reality of it is they were just a lot smarter than me. And they knew a lot more than I did, and they were actually really good cops. They just weren't proactive, like in as far as they weren't going out there and making street arrests, but answering 911 calls, doing their job. They were really good cops.
Yeah. I see a comment there, Modern Samurai. We don't disagree here. A lot of cops are products of where they grew up. So, and just because you're a little unrefined doesn't mean you couldn't be a great cop, And a lot of times, a lot of those ghetto cops, right, are great gun cops because they grew up in those areas and they know where the guns are, right? They know how to talk to people and how to have the people in those areas listen to them, okay? But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be refined a little bit so they know how to adjust how they talk to people depending on who it is, right? But I mean, again, cops are products of where they're from, we can't have everybody. The NYPD, it's a mistake if we're gonna have every cop on the job come from a nice town where you're not gonna have to deal with the ghetto or the hood or the lowbrow behavior, because that's not, the whole of New York City isn't gonna be like that. You're gonna meet people who are lowbrow or people who are ghetto, and then you're also gonna meet people who are in great neighborhoods who you're just gonna have to learn how to adjust talking to people depending on your circumstances and how to be but you're gonna have to be professional, So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, who is it? Aaron Reagan, who's been every member of the Blue Bloods cast so far. They said that if it was a man, they'd be in more trouble right now. And I'm gonna say no, because again, it's a non-incident. What do you got? You got a police officer cursing? That's what you got. She cursed. Okay. All right. End the story. Like I'm going to say no. Say absolutely not. Anything else on this? Like, I just think it's a training issue. I think it should definitely be addressed, but I don't think this is a big deal at all. And I think it could be easily trained out. And I think, if I just looked at, it's just rage bait, right? Like everyone online, like you got like two types of people talking about cops today, and we don't fit in either of them. And one, it's the always back to blue and stay silent about all the issues, but pretend you care when someone commits suicide, never talk about anything that's actually happening on the ground, never giving cops a voice, actual rank and file voice, just always, everything's Blue Lives Matter, blah, 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 always just rah, 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 never look at any of the negativity. And then the other crowd is just scouring the internet for anything that they could find to show that a cop does the slightest thing that's off, and then pretend like from their moral high ground, like, oh my, this should never happen. This should never happen. And like, we're definitely not in any of those categories. I think that's why we're significantly different. I think that's why we get a lot more hate. And I think that's why we get a lot more views, and that's why we have a lot more people that like this podcast and listen to it, because we call out the bullshit when it's bullshit and we talk about it from a real perspective. And we don't pretend that we had these, we're above being human and having human reactions. And we understand that cops are in fact human. They make mistakes. They do dumb things. And we talk about what's not a big deal, what's correctable, what isn't. What's actual corruption, And a lot of people don't do that, you know, and we call out the dumb shit regardless of what side of the aisle it falls on, you know, and here's just one more piece of dumb shit. Like, here's the dumb thing I'm going to call out right now. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you taking this picture? You know, like Jeff Madry at the parade. You taking a picture with him? I'm not. I'm not. You like the guy, you don't like the guy. Like, hey, look, Chief, yeah, how's it going? Okay, yeah, I'm not taking a picture with you. Sorry, I'm not getting caught up. Let me know when you're out of that mess, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, dumb. I say this is dumb.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm surprised he's willing to show his face already. You know, considering he's still you know, that case hasn't been closed. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I can just go back to that comment, who was it? It was Aaron that said it, right? Aaron Reagan.
Yeah,
said it. I wonder if she's referring to this incident involving Officer Corinne McFadder at the 7-2. If you guys could recall, there was a couple incidents with him. One involving a pedestrian in a park, a civilian in the park, and his RMP. And the other involving this, where the civilian shows up at the 7-2 to give him a CCRB, to drop a CCRB on him, and he gets into a chest bumping match with the civilian. She might be referring to that. If you've been following that case, Karan was recently indicted by the Brooklyn DA's office, which we said ourselves that was he was overstepping his boundary, because this should have been NYPD internal disciplinary matter. Okay, so that this thing was bullshit. Okay, bullshit. You know, that the Brooklyn DA's office is involved with it. But we also said in this incident that, again, somebody should have spoken to this cop and find out, like, what's going on, bro. You know, you can't do that. You know, you got to be more professional, because, again, you're on a big stage in New York City with the NYPD, and incidents like this get filmed, and everybody's watching it. And it not only, in this case, did it land in the PC's desk and 1PP, but, you know, in the Brooklyn DA's office, you know. So I think she may be referring to this. He didn't get in trouble just for the chest bump. He got in trouble for the incident that happened before, and we think that's unfair too. Okay, but the whole point we're making here is that in either case, both cops should be spoken to by their bosses to find out what's going on, and to tell them that they gotta be more professional before they do get themselves in trouble. Okay, we're not saying that they should be thrown out immediately. We're saying you got to be talked to and find out if there's anything going on in their lives or something that you can slow down before they get themselves in trouble. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
All right, let's get to the coffee and donuts. What do we got? Oh boy, there's a ton of Nolan ones here. Oh, Nolan's new to the chat, guys. In case you guys haven't heard him, he just came in today. So, all right, let's see. He says, John, FYI, Stephen Bishop Lee was never full of testosterone, mostly soy sauce. Racist, Nolan. It's a racist, really racist. Yeah. I personally think you and Lee should do a smoker. We could set it up. It could be like a charity event. We could do a pay-per-view. You know, I'll bring my step stool, get me a 6'3" guy with a ponytail, and I'll be part of the event. You know.
Yeah, nothing's wrong with soy sauce, Detective Nolan. Soy sauce is great. Yeah.
Yeah. NYPD 8311. He says, not a lot of women in the NYPD back in the 80s, but this woman makes the old NYPD proud. Someone you want to come when you call an 85 forthwith. Back working, don't catch the show live. Well, we miss you, brother. And anyway, appreciate you being here. So no worries. You know, don't work too hard, bro. You know, don't work too hard, my friend. But yeah, I'll take that any day. Reagan, you highlighted, he asked, when are the Knicks going to the White House? I don't know exactly when they're going, but they're definitely going to go. I think they all said they're going. This is all the New York media cares about. They could care less about anything else. It's like, oh, the Knicks going to see Trump. It's like, dude, I would have went to see Obama. Like, I don't understand what this obsession is with. I'm not going to the White House. Like, they went to City Hall to sit down with a Democratic socialist who has no clue what he's doing. Why wouldn't they go to the White House?
No, I think she might be referencing like the past. The I think was it the Warriors that didn't want to go?
The Warriors, the Thunder. I think there was another team that didn't go. And honestly, it was disgraceful. I was like, that's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah. The NBA, to its credit, seems to have moved past that woke stuff, So,
yeah. Jack Recco, 5'11", says, have some espresso and cannolis on us, Joe Cops. Also, still waiting for that 3-versus-3 pickup game. Loser, delete their podcast. Don't know what you're talking about, dude. 3-on-3, yeah, I'm always down to play a little basketball. I will definitely school Mondani. I will school Jumaane Williams. Any other politician in New York City, they will not be able to hold their own on a basketball court. That is damn for sure.
Does he mean us against the politicians or us against the other guys?
I mean, they definitely can't play basketball. So, I mean, that wouldn't even be fair. I mean, I think Mondani might have a better shot,
I mean, Sal does have the height on us, so.
Yeah, it's not going to matter.
Damn, I just gave him a couple hundred more views on Monday.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Here we go. John, if you come to the Jack Recco 61 barbecue and apologize to Eric George Jefferson slanders, I will consider making peace with Stephen Bishop Lee. Now go get your shine box. Okay, Noah. Appreciate it. I'll think about it. Pat Donahue, 2960. He says, today, the Detectives Endowment Association will unveil its newest delegate. No election happened. Detectives were removed from another delegate to create the need for a new delegate. Nepotism at the Volley House and the DEA. Now, Marlon, we didn't speak about this offline, but this is something that I heard from a lot of people. Do you know what he's referring to without us having talked about this?
No, never.
So what happened is the DEA put a delegate spot up. They created a delegate spot. And there was no election that happened for this delegate. And they moved detectives over so that they created the need for this delegate. If you had to guess, could you think of anyone that Scott Monroe would want to make a delegate?
Scott Monroe Jr.?
Ding, 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 ding.
No way. You kidding me? Come on, man. No way. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, bro. Well, I'm gonna be on that for the next week, Scott. That's some bullshit right there. It's not enough that you help Junior in his career. Now you got to help him into the union too. You can't just run for delegate. You can't just run and work his way up there. Come on, man.
Well, to be fair, dude, I don't think that they stopped anybody from running, from what I heard anyway. And I could be wrong. Pat probably knows more than I do. But from what I heard from other people, it's not that they didn't hold an election. I don't think anyone ran against him. But I think to be fair, though, I think people would be intimidated to run against them because everyone knows the spot was created for him. And so, and that falls again on the father. And I think, it's a joke, dude. And like I said, I think they want that 65 bill because I think the move's going to be is to get Junior up into a trustee spot, into, a non-report spot, and then eventually take over the union in the future. I mean, that's what it looks like to me, dude. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what it looks like to everybody. And, and we've gotten that information from a lot of people. I just hadn't put it out in the past because there was really nothing to talk about because it hadn't happened yet. But yeah, I mean, so I think, nepotism, cronyism at its finest.
Yeah. I hope you continue doing whatever you can to prevent me from ever giving back on the job, Scott. Because if I ever come back there, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to be showing up at those meetings and bringing stuff like this up all the time. That is complete bullshit. What is this? It's like a feudal. It's a feudal lordship, you know. Well, you're gonna you
Feudal
pass it
manner.
down to your kids, you know. This complete bullshit, man. Bullshit.
Well,
It's
you know what's funny? Like that I think Eric sent me a post a while back, and it was Faizan, and he was asking like, where should you put your kids, in a busy house or a slow house or whatever? And then I read like a couple of comments, and it was other bosses on there saying like, oh, I put my kid here, I put my kid there.
You mean
And I'm
Faizan
like,
said it? Faizan said it in his video.
yeah, but then other bosses chimed in and started talking about it, and I'm like, wow. I was like, you know, we just weren't on. Dude, we were just peasants, bro. You know what I mean? We just didn't get. It really is. It really is like it's like a feudal manner. Your parent gets up to the top of the department, and you know you get placed in good spots, and you never have to worry about doing the job. It's a joke, dude. It's a complete joke.
Yeah. I mean, look, Junior got into the fire department in Hull Park, I think it is. I mean, Jesus, man. I do not get it, man. You know, he's a grown ass man himself. Let him. Come on. That's terrible. That's terrible. You know. I mean, I can't believe. I say if I was back on the job, you know, even though I would stay in the union just to become just to show up at these meetings and call out the BS. You know, I would also. It'd be also hard for me to continue being in that union with all this bullshit going on, you know? I mean, Scott to this day hasn't said anything about me, Scott. And there's other people who were fired too. And you don't want to say anything and you're doing crap like this, you know? Complete. It annoys me to no amount, you know?
It's a joke, dude.
Yeah.
Nolan
bullshit.
again. Nolan's gonna pay for my whole visit to New York. Look at this. John, please show up at Jack Recco's 61 barbecue. Please make the peace between Lee and me. I don't know what barbecue you're talking about. Nolan. I have no idea. Send us the barbecue. We don't know what you're talking about. Hunter 1. If you come to Jack Recco's barbecue, we can discuss the details on how Eric George Jefferson slandered shit can Steve Bishop's Lee $35 million lawsuit back in 2018. Okay. Awesome. What else is Nolan? This is getting sick, bro. What is this one? John, Jack Recco is hosting a barbecue. He invited Stephen Bishop Lee. Can you make it? Also, I will be bringing the gluten-free buns. Okay. Dude, I think I'm getting crazier, like reading those. I think something's happening to me. It's like voodoo. Modern Samurai. He says, great show today, guys. Hope Eric is doing well. We always lose in court of public opinion, and now everything lands on the internet and is used as a club to beat us with. God bless. Yeah, absolutely. People got to, you know, my sergeant told me a long time ago, one of the sergeants I had for like the longest period, crazy guy, funny bastard, won't blow him up, but he used to tell me, just you're an actor, like you're always on camera. Just act like you're an actor when you're in uniform. You're not yourself. And I always did that. And I thought that was really great advice. And that was pre all this cell phone cameras and all this other bullshit. You know, he was always like an actor. You know, someone would come up to me all flustered, be like, you okay? You need medication? Like, you know, like he taught me how to like act in a lot of situations, because that's what you're doing. You're acting. You know, so I think, you know, in the modern day of policing, you still need to be very aware of, you should be in that frame of acting and being concerned about how you're going to appear, right? How would you want to appear? What would you think if you saw you on that camera? How would you expect a police officer to act? And I think if you put those thoughts in your head, you'll do great. But Eric's doing good. He's you know, like I said, he's taking a little rest. He's going to be in the Caribbean now, and then he's going to get ready for his surgery. You know, so but he'll be back soon. So, and then we got Dan the Man, New York. I don't know who this is. Dan the Man. He says, "Great show, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Father's Day." Dan the Man, thank you, sir. We appreciate you, brother. And that's true. Happy Father's Day to everybody. You know, have a great weekend, everybody. We hope you all have a safe weekend. And we hope you're not still all out there rioting in the streets, you know, in the mean streets of the city. So yeah, all in all, I think you know, there was a lot that we covered here today. For those of you, wherever you watched, listened, if you could do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on our audio podcast, if you could do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review and leave us comments. We appreciate, helps us move us up in the algorithm, helps us to continue to get good sponsorship and really, you know, and pay for all the things and all of our time, you know, all of the costs we put out of our pockets to do this and all the time we spend putting this together. And as always, we appreciate all you guys for being here.
Yeah, guys, we thank you for spending your mornings with us. You know, we always appreciate it. I'm just trying to pull this up. Yeah, I saw a comment there about it being volunteer, the Hop Park Fire Department. And yes, it is, but you can't tell me that, you know, Scott Sr. didn't use some of his influence to help Scott Jr. become a commissioner with that department. That family is, keep in mind, that family name is royalty to that department because I believe it's their grandfather or granduncle that also served in it. We're talking decades ago. They have had family in there for like maybe close to 100 years now. Okay. But I have a problem with you treating, you know, certainly treating positions in the NYPD like if it's a friggin' you know, feudal lordship, you know, and many of these guys do. Many of these chiefs do. They put in their family members in areas that they didn't earn themselves, and that's my whole point. But yeah, like I said, we always appreciate you guys spending time with us, and if you haven't already, we'd also appreciate if you smash those like buttons and you share us out. And yeah. And you have a great day and have a great weekend. And if you're on patrol tonight, stay alert and please stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We got Pat Donahue says it's not too late to celebrate the federal holiday, Juneteenth, today. Head out to the country club on Long Island and join DEA president at its annual picnic. Yeah, we talked about that last show, and I don't understand why any of this stuff's in Long Island. It amazes me. I don't get it. It's like it's such a slap in the face. I think like you go to the city, you make your money, and you don't really give two shits about it. You know. So, all right, people, listen. We'll be back on Monday. Me and Marlon. Eric will still be out. I'll be out for about a week. And then, yeah, we're going to keep rocking and rolling. And, yeah, we appreciate everybody for being with us today. Have a great, happy weekend. And we'll be back soon. Finest Unfiltered. We will be back at you.
My wife, India, wanted me to thank the NYPD for making sure everything went the way it was supposed to go. New York, let's keep this energy going.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?